Live, and yes, we are live. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Kasanova podcast. I'm your host, MekelKasanova, Hawaii's favorite YouTuber, and I've got with me the one and only Alex of My Backlog Battle. Dude, go ahead and introduce yourself. What's up, man? How are you doing?
Pretty good, man. Again, like he said, like my name's Alex. My channel is called Backlog Battle. We play a lot of, well, lately it's been a lot of types of RPGs and co-op games, but really lately we've been playing a lot of Yakuza. I have a whole playlist filled with that.
Man, that game is amazing, though. I don't blame you.
Yeah, it really is. I've been playing a lot of Yakuza 6. And yeah, I mean, if you go to youtube.com/mybacklogbattle, that's where you can find me. And of course on Twitter, twitter.com/mybacklogbattle, that's where you can find me on Twitter. So thanks for having me, man. I've been really excited to be on your show. Like I know we've talked about it for like a few weeks and stuff, but now I'm finally here. So thanks, man.
Hey, no problem, man. No problem at all. I'm excited and honored to have you on. I love your content. Big shout out to Xander Skillian of Excess Gaming Podcast for introducing me to you and your content, man. I can't wait to do a collab with both of you guys. We just got to get this schedule thing, you know, with me being in Hawaii. I think I'm like 4 hours behind you and 6 hours behind him. So we're going to get it figured out one day, people.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's not impossible.
All right, man. So, go ahead and I want to ask you about, what got you into gaming and, becoming passionate about gaming.
Okay, so this is kind of interesting because I actually talked about this on my channel for a little bit in one of the community questions, but I had recently realized that I had some sort of memory in the past that I didn't remember about my gaming history. Because originally I thought that I got into video games after playing Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and that was it, right? But my uncle back, in the Philippines and stuff actually, introduced me to video games like pretty early on. Like we're talking like Atari 2600. I remember playing Enduro Racer, which, man, it's blocky as hell, but it looked so cool back then. And so, I would say like that was really like where I got in. And then I think what happened with Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and how I really got obsessed with that is, like the most interesting thing to me about that game is whenever you're punching your opponents and stuff, or they give you like tells, it's almost like playing poker. And I was like, wow, this is so freaking advanced. And to be honest, like, I sometimes tell people like, I actually like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out better than Mario in some ways. And they're like, just, that's ridiculous, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
They gave you that look of bewilderment.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like, why do you like that game? But really, like, and here's actually a fun fact about Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. And this is something that for some reason, like I read through in Nintendo Power back in the day. So there's like 5 different chips that Nintendo uses for like the NES to make different things happen. This is the only one that uses the second chip that they have, which is MMC2. Yeah, I know it's so nerdy, but it's like, I remember that and I'm like, man, that game is special. Look at that. It's the only game that uses that.
That's amazing, man. If you want, you can go into more detail about that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, that's really all I know about it. I know that I think Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse used MMC5, and I think Mega Man 3 used MMC3. Really, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day and stuff, it's, I really got into video games like pretty early on. And I think really what defines my love for gaming is just the storytelling and character development. Like, I would say like my favorite NES game, probably of everything, probably right next to like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is Ninja Gaiden, because
I'm waiting for you to say Ninja Gaiden 2 Dark Sword Chaos.
I mean that too. Like I love the entire series. Some people hated the third one, but I'm like, it's a trilogy. I can't really pick one better than the other. But if I did, Ninja Gaiden 2 is definitely my favorite of the 3. Yeah,
I actually didn't mind Ninja Gaiden 3. I think if you're playing the Japanese version, definitely you got the better one. But
yeah,
in America, I mean, I think a lot of people didn't beat it. I remember playing that back in the day and just breaking controllers because of how frustratingly hard it was. But it was a game that really, it was not only based on your reflexes, but also your skill and patience and pattern reading. So
yeah,
that game I love it and I hate it all in the same accord. But that trilogy, I feel like with Tecmo really outdid themselves on the original Nintendo with that trilogy because there's almost nothing like it on it.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Mm-hmm. It was very unique because of the cutscenes, and I think really that was the one game that really told me, like, yeah, you know what? Video games can tell stories, and it can actually engage people in very different ways. It's very early, and some of the story, if you really look back at it, doesn't make sense, but that's okay. It was the NES era.
Yeah. All right, man. So here's the other thing I want to ask you, and that's going to be what got you into YouTube and podcasting?
Okay, so this might be a very long and windy story, but
go for it, man.
Let's do podcasting first, because I actually, you know what? I'll do both at the same time. So back around 2008 and stuff, like I used to be like a huge fan of Leo Laporte from Tech TV or even G4 Tech TV, if you know, like the screensavers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he's always told, you know, his audience that as long as, you know, you have something to use for recording or, you know, something to say and stuff, you can make content. And he called it some weird word like democratization of content or whatever the hell it is, some weird word like that. But what he really meant was anybody in the future will be able to make any sort of content posted anywhere and people will be okay with it. And of course, that's where we live now. But back in 2008, you know, people were still kind of gun shy with making videos, streaming on Justin TV for video games because Twitch didn't really exist back then yet.
That's true.
And at the time, I created this group called Games in Me, and it's a lame ass name, but like in my opinion, at least, and I made it. But like, we were basically one of the first collaborative YouTube channels to exist. And it was just basically me, my girlfriend at the time, my best friend at the time, and like all my other, you know, friends locally. And so we kind of rose up the ranks and stuff. Like, you know, we became friends with like Pete Dorr and Happy Console Gamer from time to time and stuff. We'd talk. But like really it lasted for about a year or two, and we did YouTube videos and we did podcasts and stuff. And really that's where it all started. Like our whole idea was let's at the time is let's kind of share the couch experience of playing games with everybody else on the internet. So it literally was like Twitch before Twitch ever even happened.
Yeah.
And we did that with videos. We did that with podcasts. And so I've been doing the podcast thing since then. And for videos, I thought that video was kind of in a weird spot at the time. Because when I stopped doing YouTube, which was about 2009, 2010, that's when the copyright strikes started happening, like around that period. And so when I thought that all my content, all my hard-earned content was basically going to get pulled because of the copyright, I just stopped completely. I was like, I don't want to work on something for 2 or 3 hours and then all of a sudden YouTube just pulls it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So basically fast forward to about last year, I'm still podcasting and I was still podcasting. And I decided, you know what? YouTube seems to be better now in some cases. And a lot of people who've been on YouTube for 10 years say like, oh no, it's gotten worse. And I'm like, really? Like, how bad is it compared to when they would just pull your videos and not give it to you back? And so, yeah, I've just been doing YouTube since like June of last year, a little bit experimental. And, now I've had so much growth over the past year or so. Like, I'm just so happy to be back,
That's awesome, man. So, I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Your content and your podcast are phenomenal, and it's amazing for me. And it's an honor for me also to meet amazing content creators like yourself. It's really inspiring.
Thank you. I try to strive my best to kind of learn from you guys as well, because I'm just a newbie. Like, yeah, I did videos back in 2008, but there's what is it now, like 10 years later, like all my knowledge is gone. Like that doesn't matter anymore. So I really appreciate like every single help everybody gives to me and stuff. And I try to pay it back as much as I can.
Definitely. And everyone, if you're watching this and you're listening to it, make sure you go and subscribe to Alex's channel. Links down in the description below. Follow him on Twitter. And also check out his website. His website is down in the description below. It's if you want, go ahead and plug it, man. You can plug it better than I can.
Okay. Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/mybacklogbattle. Sometimes I post video game stuff. Sometimes I greet people good morning. Sometimes I tell people I'm doing yoga. So, I mean, there's that. But which, by the way, it's funny because, like, you know, we're talking about like the things you could ask me and stuff. And I know that I'm totally like segueing and stuff, but
it's fine. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, but like, I don't see like a wrestling question anywhere in this questionnaire. I'm kind of curious about that.
Okay. I got some questions for you. I just wasn't sure if you wanted to go into, because I've been wanting to ask some people about wrestling, but I don't know. Like, I wasn't sure if they want to go into that. But I mean, we can segue into that right now. Okay.
Okay.
WrestleMania and the NXT takeover.
Yes.
And let's talk about the Kenny Omega versus the American Nightmare Cody. Your take. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
I think that match was pretty amazing. Like, it's interesting to me because here's the thing. I want to bring this back to video games as well. I don't know if your audience knows this, but Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes are the hugest freaking nerds like in wrestling out there. Like, they both play a lot of video games. In fact, if you go back into Cody Rhodes' career, you know, when he started in the WWE, or he didn't really start in the WWE, but like when he was in the WWE, if you notice, like his boots have like the Triforce symbol on it. Yep. If that's not like an indication of like hardcore geekiness, I don't know what is. And also, Cody Rhodes has admitted that he's spent about like $2,000 to $3,000 on Clash of Clans, and so I mean, I wished I had that much money to spend on something. I don't know if I'd spend on Clash of Clans, but I mean, I think that match was really a good showcase of technique for both people and stuff, and that was really freaking amazing. And to me, like, you know, it's tough because that whole weekend was filled with so much talent, like from Takeover, you know, to the NJPW events and to Ring of Honor to, you know, to WrestleMania, which is of course the Super Bowl of wrestling. You know, it's I don't know. It's tough to pick which one would be my favorite, really.
I'm really amazed at the amount of people that are saying that they didn't enjoy the Kenny Omega Cody Rhodes match and saying that the Ciampa match or was it Tommaso and
Gargano
and Gargano, they're saying that was a better match, and I'm like, I can see that, but at the same time, I can't crap all over Cody and Kenny. Like, they're two of the top wrestlers in the world, and they put on, you know, for Ring of Honor, an amazing show. I thought it was amazing.
I absolutely think so as well. And it's just, it's a different feel to the Gargano and Ciampa match. Like, the Ciampa match is so much of a storytelling kind of match that, you know, to be quite frank, like at the beginning of the night, I actually predicted that it was going to be main event because I was like, think about it, dude. Like, that's how TakeOver last year ended, is with the betrayal. And of course, now it's got to be the main event because people have been waiting for this literally for a year. But you can't compare both, though, because there are different setups and expectations towards each match. You have to also pay attention to the story leading to each, where there's a lot of emotional investment in Ciampa and Gargano, like, because, you know, they've just been building it up. And as far as Omega and, you know, and Rhodes are concerned, it has a different feel, is what I'm saying. And I don't think it's comparable in any shape, way, or form. But
I agree.
Yeah.
I was going to say, too, you also have an audience of people that a lot of them primarily only know WWE. They don't know anything outside of it. So they're used to the antics and the goofiness of WWE. So when I've noticed that when they see wrestlers who are actually wrestling, they're mat technicians that can go the distance and they have the ring psychology. If you're primarily WWE, a lot of that is kind of lost on you in a way, and that's amazing for me, and probably for you as well. I mean, us coming from the era of watching wrestling like in the 90s and up, it's like we've seen the transition. We've seen, you know, WCW, WWE, what was the other one? ECW. We've seen the progression of wrestling from one or two moves to the technicians to high flyers. And, you know, when you've gotten only one product, which is getting the most recognition globally, which is WWE, it
Mm-hmm.
makes it kind of hard for you to want to step outside of that. Because I see a lot of people that crap all over Impact Wrestling. I'm like, it may not be as good, but there's some decent matches in there that are really, really worth watching. And a lot of people just won't give it a time of day because the brand Impact, TNA, Global Force, whatever they're calling themselves nowadays, has really been tarnished.
Mm-hmm.
And they just, and when it comes to Ring of Honor, I think a lot of people kind of wrote them off as an indie show. And then New Japan, I think, is only now within the last couple of years getting a lot more global recognition than what they have. And they've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
So,
one of the things that I loved about this weekend is the Hall of Fame events. And I'm always a sucker for those in the WWE. And a lot of people, when they heard about Jeff Jarrett going to the Hall of Fame, they were kind of confused because they were like, well, he wasn't really that good of a wrestler in the Attitude Era. And I told them, like, look, he's not going in primarily because of his wrestling prowess. It's also what he did after that. Like, if you look at the backstage and the way that the WWE has created this narrative about Jeff Jarrett on their YouTube channel, actually, and their Twitter account, they're really acknowledging Jeff Jarrett's contributions in TNA because all the people that he's discovered and trained and really built up are in the WWE now. Like, like Bobby Roode and AJ Styles and all those guys, like Samoa Joe. It's crazy to think that, that's happening, like where the WWE is like where they are now. But there's a rumor, and this is kind of, to me, I find this interesting, that the reason why the WWE is inducting Jeff Jarrett is because they, Triple H is kind of trying to build up his quote unquote takeover army in a way, like when Vince retires, so that way he can actually use Jeff Jarrett's expertise to shore up and build up the UK division finally, and maybe another division somewhere else. Because with that kind of knowledge and having the resume of like being able to say like, hey, I built up TNA to what it was, to being a powerhouse with all these stars that, by the way, is in the WWE now. I mean, how can you say no to that resume?
Very, very true. And I feel like Jeff Jarrett has done phenomenal. Oh, sorry about that.
It's okay.
It's what happens when you live right next door to like one of the busiest streets in the whole city. It's insane. Yeah. But when you think about like the stuff that Jeff Jarrett has done for the wrestling industry, especially when he was fired from WWE back during the Invasion angle, and he went on with his father, which Jerry Jarrett, I believe.
Yeah.
They started the TNA, and it was a division of the NWA, and he basically kept the NWA alive for a long while, and then definitely improved upon it significantly. There's a point where I actually felt TNA was way better than WWE, and I think a lot of people felt that way towards like the mid 2000s. They were putting on a hell of a show, and then especially when they would go to like the UK, they did phenomenal.
Yeah, they
constantly.
did.
Stuff that WWE couldn't do.
Exactly. And and I don't want to just kind of credit TNA and stuff for the current crop of talent in the WWE, but also Ring of Honor, which, by the way, isn't small anymore. They've done a huge job of like, really showcasing a lot of really good talent, which again is in the WWE. Now, I'm not saying that the WWE is smart or anything like that, or, like that's like the end all be all of wrestling. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. But if you want to get a sneak peek on the future of that company, I mean, it's already here though. Like you could just tune into NJPW and Ring of Honor, and it's just so many other promotions that are actually pretty much thriving. It's pretty amazing. Progress Wrestling, like in UK, for example, it's great.
Yeah, it's definitely, man. And I wanted to ask you, with how they ended the Hall of Fame for WWE with Goldberg, and his last words were, "You never know who's next." You think we're gonna get him back again?
No, that's it. This is a Sting situation. Remember in the speech, he actually thanked Sting because he saw what Sting did during his final run at the WWE, and then he was gone forever. That's the same thing that's going to happen with Goldberg.
Yeah, I don't want to see him in the ring with like Lesnar again or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it was the reason why they set it up that way is because he just wasn't happy with how the last Lesnar and Goldberg match happened. That's why he kind of did a redo, so to speak. So
true. And I thought he had a really good return. And, and speaking on like WrestleMania, I enjoyed the show. I know a lot of people were upset with a lot of things. I saw so much tears on Twitter over WrestleMania, especially over the main event of Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. And the thing is, I don't dislike Roman Reigns. I mean, technically our families, because I'm part Samoan, our families are related since we're both of the Anoa'i family. But the thing that I've really I've not liked with Roman is how much they've just forced him to be the guy.
Yeah.
It needs to happen organically. And there were points where he could have been the guy. If they just let him talk, like the way he was when it was him versus John Cena. Like when John brought that out of him, I was like, this is the Reigns I want to see.
Yeah.
But then they stop. It's like he's so heavily controlled. And I'm thinking back on, when you had The Rock, you had Stone Cold, you had Undertaker. They were never meant to be the guys. It was never meant to be them, but they became the guy. Just because they had the freedom to just do whatever they want. And I feel like if Roman had that opportunity to just be free, it would do him a really good. It would be really good for him, especially if he could just be a heel. I think he needs to turn heel because I see the situation we have with Roman Reigns is the same one we had with The Rock back when he started, when they were doing the Die Rocky Die chants. Like, let him turn on the fans, and then he can be that in between, guy. Like back when he was saying before, I'm not a good guy, I'm not a bad guy, I'm the guy. Yeah, let him run with that. Let him walk that thin, that line between good and bad, and just be him. And I feel like they're stifling him, and I really don't want to see him in the main event next year.
I think that what's really happening is something that I actually read on Reddit, and somebody actually had like an interesting observation about WWE in general, where there isn't really a real face or a real heel in the WWE. They could be both, and they really don't give a crap about like public perception in a way. And I think because it's so kind of trying to work into a gray area, that people are just getting confused. They're like, I don't know, man. Like, so who's the face and the heel in the, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar situation? I don't know. We hate Reigns, but we kind of hate Brock being the champion too. So how do you advance a story from there, And I think that's really what happened with that main event, is that there was nobody that people can relate to, and really, like, it just pissed people off. Now, the funny thing about Vince McMahon, and in many of the books that I've read about him, is that he's a very interesting guy when it comes to booking pay-per-views, because he actually cares more about the emotions of the crowd coming out of a match as opposed to the outcome of the match. Like, it's like, for example, there was this one story that Jericho told in his book where Vince actually literally wanted to piss people off by having Fandango win over him in WrestleMania. And he literally like said that in his book. He's like, yeah, Vince only cares about pissing people off in that particular point in time. And I was like, wow, that's crazy to think about. And really, but in that situation, it's like, it's kind of weird because, last year in WrestleMania, we left WrestleMania kind of bummed because The Undertaker is quote unquote retired. But now, like, they're leaving people with like really pissed off and kind of like felt like they wasted money. And a lot of people are speculating that because there's a quote unquote greatest Royal Rumble happening later in the month, that's really where WrestleMania is happening, which I'm like, man, that sounds really lame, dude. That's really lame.
I don't think, And I know, like, going back to like the whole the Brock Roman Reigns main event, a lot of people are upset that Brock retained. And it's kind of funny because I'm like, aren't these the same people that were mad that Roman's been main eventing 4 times in a row?
Yeah.
I'm like, but you don't want him to get the belt again. You don't want him to have the strap. But now you want him to have the strap. You're mad that he didn't get. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. And people who are wondering why I keep saying strap, that's how you know I'm a wrestling fan.
Yeah, Vince hates that though. He hates people saying it's a strap or it's a belt. No, it's a title. Damn it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
I know.
My goodness. I'm gonna have to edit that part out. Yeah, I don't know what it is about. It's only Thursday. I mean, maybe it's the overcast. It's got people needing to go to the hospital. I don't know.
Freaking out. They think it's a fire, dude. It's just overcast, man. It's not like harmful fire, but I know, like we kind of took like this dive into wrestling. People are like, why are they talking about wrestling? Like, aren't you a video game channel? Holy crap, man.
Hey, but wrestling is really important. And okay, here's what I'm gonna say. And this will probably be one of the last 2 things I'll say about wrestling.
Okay.
I'm a Brock Lesnar fan. Been a fan of his since the OVW days.
Okay.
And I'm happy he retained the belt. I understand what they're doing. And a lot of people are saying, oh, he's going to drop the belt at the Greatest Royal Rumble. I don't think so. I think what they're trying to do is, since CM Punk had the longest running world, what was it, 434 days he was champion. They're trying to break that since he's no longer associated with the company. Who else to do it than to have Brock do it? Yeah. He's already 300 and some odd days. Like, if we get to SummerSlam, what I really think they're building up to, and is also the reason why they brought in Bobby Lashley, it's another dream match that people want to see. So what, do I think Roman's gonna get the belt? No, because they already teased on Monday that it's gonna be Roman versus Samoa Joe at Backlash.
Interesting. Okay.
So I feel like they're gonna go another route with him. They got Bobby. They're going to have Bobby do some squash matches and lead up probably to SummerSlam. It'll be Bobby versus Brock because, I mean, legitimately, who else is going to actually go up against Brock that's believable? Because they both have a similar win-loss record. They both have a similar amateur wrestling background. They have a similar physique and look. They're both athletic freaks. Brock could probably work with him because the thing is, Brock will work when it makes sense.
If he likes people.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that time where basically like Braun Strowman accidentally knees like Brock and he literally clocks him in real life. Like, man, that was crazy.
He clocked him and he was dazed. I was like, you're gonna feel that for the next month.
Yeah, man.
But what do you think is going to happen at this Greatest Royal Rumble? Like, what do you think the setup for this year is?
Okay, so my biggest, like, the most exciting thing about Greatest Royal Rumble for me is actually 2 of my favorite wrestlers wrestling there. And I don't know if you heard this because this just got announced today, but The Undertaker is wrestling Chris Jericho in a casket match. And I'm like, and it's weird for me because I've read all of Jericho's books and I know his, shoot relationship with The Undertaker. Like, they're really good friends. In fact, when Chris Jericho was really upset that he was fighting Fandango in WrestleMania, the first person he called was Taker. Gave him advice and everything, which, it was really good advice. Let's put it that way. And so how are they going to spin this story? I mean, obviously not a lot of people are privy to both wrestlers' lives like I am, because, like they haven't read the books or anything. So I'm wondering if they're going to lead up to that somehow, or they're just going to wrestle like, right away. Because it seems to me like that there's barely any storylines going into Greatest Royal Rumble, which is weird.
Seem like it. Yeah, it's weird. Super weird.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of like where I'm at as far as I'm concerned is like, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to watch that whole pay-per-view, going to enjoy it. And then whatever happens afterwards happens, like, it is what it is. Also, I just want to take this opportunity to shout out Oso Jiggly in the chat room. I have a copy of WWE All Stars. That is my thing personally, my favorite wrestling game of all time right now, because it's like it continues the ridiculous fighting gaminess of like the midway WrestleMania games from the 90s. And that's like the Tekken of like wrestling games for me. It's awesome.
Amazing, man. Amazing.
See, I have range.
Yeah, you did. You literally told me before we even started this podcast. I mean, we could take a topic and just go any direction with it.
Yeah, man.
So true, man.
That's see, part wrestling podcast, part video games. It's all good.
All right, so I guess going back to YouTube, so and also with podcasts too. I know you touched on it a little bit, but what have been some like the triumphs and challenges that you've encountered on this journey of basically content creation as a whole?
So, okay, so for podcasting, a lot of personal stuff happened with me and my co-host at the time that forced us to kind of stop podcasting for a while. We're talking like years, you know, because if you think about it and stuff, if we continued our podcast from 2008 to 2018, boy, howdy, like we would have had thousands of episodes. But unfortunately, like, you know, things fell apart for Games and me back in the day for me. And then, of course, his personal stuff started happening. So we just stopped. So I think the biggest challenge that we've all encountered, I think, you know, you and I can kind of connect with this, is just the challenge of setting aside the time to be able to pursue this and stuff. And really, you know, like I tell a lot of people who, you know, who say like they don't have time for anything and stuff, but I'm like, but if you really think about like why you love this and you really like kind of distill it down to the basics, I feel like that's enough motivation for you to try to find the time for it. You know, like there's so many people like, you know, like one of my inspirations is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he actually like learned how to minimize his accent. He learned a lot about, you know, like government and all that stuff when he was, you know, running for governor, and he did a lot of things that, you know, you wouldn't think like a poor boy from Austria would want to know, but he just soaked it all in. He spent a lot of time learning and kind of improving himself, and not just his bodybuilding, but also his acting, right? Like he took acting classes. He went to school in a college in Santa Monica Community College and stuff like, and he also owned businesses. So this guy is always doing something. So, you know, for us who, you know, who obviously like we spend a lot of time home sleeping and resting and stuff because we've had like a stressful day at work. It's like, you know, I've always believed that you could really do something creative regardless of, you know, regardless of where you come from. Because I've always told myself that, look, you know, who cares about who wants to listen to you or whatnot? Like, can you really tell like what 6 billion people in the world is gonna want from you? You know, no. Like, and another thing too is at the time that I started this, I thought I could please everybody. Like I was trying to be middle of the road, not inject my own opinion, and people found that boring. And then I asked myself for the longest time, like, why did that happen? Why aren't people interested? And then I discovered, you know, much to my, you know, curiosity, that a lot of people do like strong opinions. And that's why, you know, people like, you know, Angry Video Game Nerd got popular back in the day in 2008 and stuff. And there's so many other people who have risen in the ranks and kind of, you know, really strong personalities. But the one thing that I'll say, though, to kind of close this and stuff, like as far as my return to YouTube is concerned, the biggest challenge for me is to try to study and really ingest a landscape that I'm completely unfamiliar with, because I'm not a YouTuber, like consumer, if you will. Like I don't watch videos. I only watch videos if they're trailers or, you know, or live streams and stuff. Like I don't, you know, do that. I play video games. I watch movies. I watch TV. So I had to basically reacquaint myself with YouTube and what's out there. And because I learned what's out there, I know what's missing in YouTube, you know, in terms of like the kinds of content people are making. And, you know, I'm not going to pretend that I know everything, because that's not really the kind of person that I am. But, you know, I had to do a lot of work and study and watch other people's content. And of course, be part of the community to really learn like what happened between the past 10 years. You know, it's crazy to think about it in that respect.
Very true, man. and I started YouTube about a year and a half ago, and I kind of started my channel based off of a coworker telling me that you can never be successful on YouTube at this point because the door of entry closed a couple years ago, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do this because you said I can't, and more so than you saying I can, it's more so to see if I can actually do it. Like it was something for myself, and when I started, man, it really was hard because I was, like how you were saying, like trying to please everyone. I was trying to do that, and then I just got to a point where that was draining. And then when I was trying to do, all these tech videos and all these gaming videos, and it's like I don't have the time or resources to try and cover everything. Like I'm not like, say a Marquez Brownlee or Austin Evans, or where I can just, that's pretty much what I do all day. Like I have a job, I have a wife, I have a family and all that. So I can't commit to that fully. But what, is I've really started to reassess what I want to do. Like, hey, I want to stream some games because, going back to like what you said about, how we'll say we don't have time to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I have all these games in my backlog and I'm like, I feel like I'm never going to get around to it. I know what I'll do. I'll stream them. So it forces me to not only play it, but also, unless people see how I play, interact with me, I've made a lot of friends on YouTube and streaming in general. And, I've gotten around to the point where I'm like, okay, I know what I want to do with my channel. I want to do podcasts, interviews. I want to do my game reviews. I want to talk politics. I want to talk social issues. I just want to be able to have an umbrella for my brand and just do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
And, I want to have my opinion because you're right. People like strong opinions. And if you can maintain your opinion, hey, more to you.
Exactly. And for me, like, just being on YouTube and stuff was something that I felt I needed to do because, like back in 2008 when I was doing like video editing and stuff like that, I actually loved that, part of my career and stuff. Like, it's funny calling YouTube a career because it is. And, much later, I actually quit my IT job, by the way, in case you're wondering. And I decided to pursue podcasting and YouTube full time. And I was like, and it's got its challenges, but we'll not get into that right now. But the biggest thing that I got from it is that it is so satisfying to be able to learn your trade, as much as you can and stuff, and also try to apply the things that you learn along the way. But that being said, a lot of people think like, well, you're lucky because you have all this time to spend on YouTube. And I'm like, actually, no, I don't have enough time, even with the 8 hours that I'm spending on YouTube every day to spend on YouTube. Because, one of my mentors told me this, and this was actually very interesting advice. 20% of being a content creator is the actual act of creating content itself. And 80% of it is everything else: marketing, networking, community engagement, talking with other creators, like everything, and including like monetization. And I thought about that and I'm like, you're kind of right. Because I look at all the successful people like Matt Pat, or for example, AVGN, we said that, Markiplier, and all those guys. 80% of what they're doing, we're not even seeing on their channel. Yeah. But Matt Pat, for example, has like a business to help out, up and coming YouTubers. Like that's his thing, right? Consultation. Markiplier has kind of like a comedy tour happening right now. Do you think like they're actually doing that while they're recording their videos? I don't think so. That's 80% of it. That's the 80% that I'm talking about. 20% of it is just them, like, for Markiplier's sake, in front of a camera and talking about the game and commenting on it. But most of the time, Markiplier's on his office desk, wheeling and dealing and doing deals, hustling and stuff, and making sure that, the Markiplier brand exists for a long time and, he can make money out of it. So, and that's, I feel like, what people don't understand too, is that YouTube, content creation is a lot of hard work, and it's not, and I'm not meaning this to disparage people, because obviously, like, if you love YouTubing or Twitch and stuff, like that's your prerogative. But the people who want this to be like their business or what have you, like, they have to do, like, you have to go the extra mile. in order to have that happen.
Yeah, it's definitely, that's one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of content creators. They think it's just about putting up videos or streaming, and I'm like, it's so much more than that. You got to understand the business aspect of it. You are your brand. You know, you have to learn how to network and market yourself. You know, work with different companies. You know, get contracts and whatnot, get sponsorships, and that's one of the things that, like, as I've gotten into like video game reviewing, and not only video game reviewing but tech reviewing as well. It's just, I've learned to not only just review the product, but also to make such an impression on the company that they want to come and work with me again. Like, I have a excellent, I know a lot of people hate EA. I have an excellent relationship with EA. And anytime something new comes out, I have it to review. It's just, can I review it in the time frame they want me to? And I'll let them know. I have, like, I know people on a first name basis at EA and, you know, a bunch of other companies. And it's so imperative when you're building a brand. Like you said, this is a career, but you have to build your brand. You have to network and you know, I try to tell people when they're going on these videos and they're tirading and bashing a game, I'm like, there's one thing you should do and one thing you shouldn't do. Give constructive criticism if it's bad. Don't bash it to hell, because you never know who, you know, or what, you know, if you say this about this company, you don't know who's connected to who.
Yeah, you never know who's listening.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people, I see a lot of YouTubers that, you know, I'm not going to name names, but a lot of them that like to do these videos where they're doing clickbait and they're doing the bashing and rant videos. And those same YouTubers will contact me asking me, oh, do you have a contact for this game? Because I can't get anywhere with it. And I'll tell them, I wonder why.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, to kind of your point too, it's for me, like, as far as my content goes, like, I know that I'm learning as much as everybody else and stuff, but the one thing that's that's constant in the videos in my channel is how much I love playing games. And that seems to be an abstract concept to some people and stuff. Like, you know, people think like, oh yeah, you can just go on OBS, hit play or record and stuff and record your gameplay and stuff. I'm like, I used to do that when I was learning and stuff, but I don't really feel like that's me, like that I'm able to express like my opinions and stuff. Like for example, like all the Yakuza videos that I made on my channel, and
phenomenal. People, go and watch them right now.
Thank you. I really do love the series. I came to this epiphany that, you know, we don't have a lot of brawlers that, you know, that existed like in the 90s, like Final Fight, Streets of Rage, and Double Dragon. Those are gone. And the only game, in my opinion, that still fulfills that feeling of, you know, like the exhilaration of being able to punch the crap out of people and stuff, like, you know, with different special moves and stuff, is Yakuza. And to this day, I feel it's an injustice. Like for example, today, actually, I encountered a review about Yakuza 6 that said that it is the Japanese GTA game that we needed. And I'm like, that is the wrong way to describe Yakuza. There is no way that you're driving any car in Yakuza, you know, and there's no way that you can steal cars in Yakuza.
He seriously said the Japanese equivalent? Oh,
yes,
my goodness.
Yes, it is literally what they said in their review. I didn't know who it came from, but I saw somebody tweet it and they were like, no, Yakuza is not Japanese GTA. And I actually talked with some of the people at Sega and stuff, and they were like, dude, this is something that we've been working on trying to remove in the mindsets of people ever since, like, you know, the first game in the series, because like Yakuza has never been about this weird ultra grit and stuff like that. Like, that's never been the Yakuza name. And so what I decided to do is, about a month or so ago, I decided to start making videos about Yakuza, because I'm like, and here's the thing that's funny too. I am making these videos technically for a friend. I have a friend who is the biggest fighting, like, brawler fan out there. He loves, you know, Final Fight. He even bought a copy of Final Fight 3 for the Super Famicom when he went to Japan. That's how big of a hardcore fan he is. And so I made these videos so that I could show him, like, look, man, this doesn't have co-op 2-player bullshit, but this is the best brawler you've never played. You gotta try it now. And funny thing about today is I actually released a video that talks about what Yakuza game you should start with if you've never played any game in a series. Like, it literally like answers the question, like, all right, well, there are now 7 Yakuza games. Which one should I try? And I actually boil it down to, like, all right, well, I have 3 answers for you, and depending on who you are, you're gonna like one of them. So here you go. And I actually sent it to Sega, and they were actually really happy with it because they were like, "You're right. Like, these are the 3 possibilities. You're right." And ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, they even told me, like, at the end of the day, we just want you to play the game. End of story. It doesn't matter what it is. Just play the game, you know?
Yeah. And isn't it amazing when you can build that relationship with like a company like Sega, and you can be able to just like talk to them about stuff like that and share the content you make. It's such an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And man, Yakuza 6 though, I have a review of it on my channel. I'm gonna plug that right now, youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. I even have a video on mini games on Yakuza 6, which, again, the whole impetus of this was like, I wanted my buddy to actually like play Yakuza and be like, I'm going to inundate you with Yakuza content until you throw up and say, yes, I'm going to play it right now. So yeah, go check that out. And hopefully you don't throw up when watching these videos. I'm just saying.
I'm about to drop the link to that video right now in the chat, and I'll link it to the video as well. So y'all should go, and definitely whenever Alex makes a video, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe. For real, man. It's amazing content. We need more people that's this passionate about content creation. And that's the thing that I am a fan of. Hey, you just got a subscriber. You just said it in the chat.
Thank you.
Den the Avery. Thank you, Den, for that subscribe. Den is a really big, he's also a content creator. He has a group on Instagram, well, not Instagram, Twitter, and on Discord called the Brawlers Avenue. And man, they go in and they talk about brawlers to an extent that I've never seen it. I'm a fan of everything that they talk about, man. If you're looking for even an artist, because Dan does a lot of art as well. So yes,
yeah, it's funny because he's like, yeah, tell him about it. I'm like, dude, he just did, man. I know there's a delay on YouTube, but he's already selling me on this, and I'm like about to freaking Google this and try to find where this is, because I'm like, yeah, you said brawlers, I need more brawlers. Like, yeah, I'm so behind on brawlers because I mean, this might sound weird to you guys out there who are listening and stuff, but like, I feel like even though we don't consider Yakuza as like a AAA franchise, to me, it's like the AAA like franchise for brawlers. It is like the highest pinnacle of brawlers you could ever find, and everybody else underneath that is just trying to live back in the SNES days, which is not bad. You know, it's not bad at all. But it's like, here's like people who are like, we could do more than this. We can do more than just brawling and all that stuff. Which, in case people are wondering out there what my favorite like old school brawler is, it's River City Ransom. So for the NES, which, you know me, it's like the whole RPG kind of guy mixed with co-op, you know, and brawlers is perfect mix for me for that.
That means I gotta ask you, what are your thoughts on River City Ransom Underground?
Oh, I actually have not played it. Again, and that's kind of the sad part, is like, I know a lot of people telling me that I'll like it, but I'm kind of like in this weird wait and see mode still. And you know, here's the thing too that's funny, like my friend who doesn't play Yakuza and stuff like hasn't even gotten that game, but he got Double Dragon 4, which is really weird because the game actually wasn't that good. But like, you know, but I'm waiting for his opinion first, and you know, maybe I should take a look at that and stuff, because I feel like I'm missing out on some River City Ransom action.
Man, Underground is amazing. I think you'll like it, especially with the 4-player co-op. And I mean, just basically take the old River City Ransom, inject it with steroids, and there you go.
Yeah. Oh man, okay, all right. I gotta look into that now. Is it on Switch?
No, it's only on Steam, and I don't know
Okay.
why they haven't put this on console.
Ooh.
Another brawler you need to try on Steam that's amazing. And if it wasn't for Den and the Brawlers Avenue, I wouldn't have known about it. But it's called Fight and Rage. So basically, this game takes the best of Streets of Rage, Final Fight, River City Ransom. Oh man, all
Wow.
one.
That's
53 plus endings.
Whew. Wow. That's amazing. That is really crazy. Dint out there is like, please, man, play that game. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out right after this, dude. Like, it's kind of interesting to me because like like lately and stuff, like I've been trying to find like a lot of co-op games, and thankfully because brawlers are inherently co-op, that's actually like a good way to to kind of inject bring in that second player and stuff like that. In this case, my second player is my girlfriend, so really hardcore gamer in case people were wondering. And lately our jam has been like Far Cry 5, Monster Hunter World, and Final Fantasy 14 and stuff. So like I don't know if we can consume a lot of brawlers like at the same time, because my whole worry about the genre is that I know that there's a specific way that brawlers have to be, but you look at games like River City Ransom Underground and stuff, and the game that you mentioned, there's not a lot that try to inject more mechanics to the basic brawler formula of like beat the crap out of somebody and move to the right.
Mhm.
That then we're seeing right now. Like, I feel like a good evolution is like Super Metroid and Axiom Verge. Have you played Axiom Verge?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, like you see how like that game just basically blended everything they loved about multiple genres. That's kind of like what I want brawlers to go to next. Like not be confined to this, to this formula that really you could run away with. There's so much you can do in a brawler genre that I feel like we're just at the tip of the iceberg here when it comes to that. So, yeah.
Oh man, Dan wants to know if he can hop in on the hangout. He wants to talk some brawlers.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not ready. Like I'm not ready to my brain power is like kind of I don't know. Like, I'm in a weird spot today. I do apologize, but I did say to that we could talk about anything and stuff like that. So I mean, you know.
No worries, man. Well, I mean, because we got the show planned out anyway, so yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Dan, we'll do it next time, man. We'll schedule something.
Yeah.
We'll get you, Alex, Xander, and I know we got a lot of Sega heads that watch and love brawlers, and a lot of old school Capcom fans, and so we'll definitely get this going soon, because I know whenever we start talking old school brawlers and just retro games, people get hyped on this podcast. Like it's cool.
Yeah.
No worries, man.
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of cool is like, it's a nice change for me because we primarily have a lot of RPG gamers who listen to our podcast and stuff. And so sometimes I don't know if I should talk about things that are outside of that genre sometimes, because people are like when I talk about fighting games, I'm like, I sometimes wonder like, are they going to be okay with this? But for the most part, it's been really cool. Like, I talk a lot about all sorts of games because that's just my interest. I'm interested in everything video games. Yeah. And so I can't just be like, oh, you're just an RPG guy or you're just a co-op guy. I mean, I'm focusing a lot on those because, I want my podcast listeners to be happy and stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I will pick up, like God of War at the end of this week or in the next week. I'm sorry. And I'll, pick up like Dragon Quest 11 as well when it comes out. So, I mean, you got everything. I got everything pretty much.
That's one of the things too, man. I try to tell a lot of people when they're trying to get into gaming, I'm like, you can like everything. Like the whole fanboying thing, where people like only like one platform over the other. There's nothing wrong with having a preference of a platform, but that doesn't mean you need to talk down about another platform or just refuse to, because there are a lot of gaming experiences I feel that you'll only get on Xbox, you'll only
Mm-hmm.
get on PlayStation, you only get on PC. A lot of
Yep.
experiences only on PC. And a lot of them you only get on Nintendo. And if you're like, you know, like you and I, where we basically play everything, you got the best of everything.
Yeah. Well, I just want to take this opportunity to shout out to the Streets of Rage fans out there, like on the chat. You guys are pretty freaking awesome in my book. Man, wow, that brings me back. like really, like I played all three. Like, man, Yuzo Koshiro's soundtrack in that entire series, I still remember that, and it's playing in my brain right now. It's really freaking amazing.
Oh man. So I really gotta ask you, like Shenmue, since we're talking Yakuza,
Oh,
I gotta talk Shenmue.
mm-hmm.
Shenmue 3. What are your
Okay. So I will admit that while I am a huge fan of Yakuza, I'm not a huge fan of Shenmue, and the reason why is because there's okay. So let me rephrase it this way: it hasn't aged well. Especially like if you're used to the kinds of conventions that we have now, you would think that the game was built in the Stone Age or something like that because of how old it is or slow it is in a way. And
Mhm.
that's not really, and I'm not really saying that the game is bad. It's just that it was made in an era that is way different than what video games went to. It's almost like a period piece in a way because it is Yu Suzuki's best work, and I will really agree with that. And I unfortunately I missed out on Shenmue 2 when it was on the Xbox because at the time my Xbox broke, so there goes that. But like it is definitely like a game that will be talked about in history books because this is a game that tried to do so much, with well, actually, I was going to say so little, but they spent millions of dollars in that game, which probably bankrupt Sega. And it had great ideas. And the thing is, for me, I don't think Yakuza would have existed had Shenmue not existed. Because because Yakuza, what it did was it took a lot of the ideas from Shenmue and really refined it to a really amazing degree. And that's how we got Yakuza. And if you think about the timing of that too, it's really fascinating because we got it on the Dreamcast around 2000 or something like that. The date like escapes me. And then we got Yakuza later on. And
Yeah.
it's like, and really the stuff that they chose to bring over, and as well as like some of the mini games and the arcades and stuff like that, like you could tell like that deep within Yakuza's DNA was Shenmue. And at its heart, it was Shenmue. And the funny thing about that is that there are people who are fans of Shenmue that I talk to that can't bring themselves to like Yakuza for some reason. And I'm like, if you consider yourself as the biggest Sega fan, I feel like it's mandatory for you to like Yakuza at this point because that continues that tradition. And this will sound like really controversial, but I think that the Yakuza series might be a better Shenmue 3 than Shenmue 3. I'm just saying. I know, right? Right? Yeah.
I'm just waiting for Yakuza and Shenmue. Like, I kind of thought they were going to do it with Yakuza 0. I thought they were going to cross over Shenmue and Yakuza, but they didn't. I'm like, they could have. But then I was also expecting like Virtua Fighter to tie into it because for a while there, I was thinking like all like Yakuza, Virtua Fighter, and Shenmue could all be the same universe. Okay, well that kind of got thrown out the window when you can go to the arcade cabinets and play Virtua Fighter and Yakuza. So I was like,
yeah, I mean, Yakuza 6 has like Virtua Fighter 5 in there, Evolution. So there's that. That was really nice. Like, that was really nice being able to go into the arcade and play that game. And my God, like Yakuza 6 has such a huge amount of Sega arcade games in it. Like, you get Fantasy Zone, Super Hang On, like Space Harrier, Outrun, and of course, like Virtua Fighter. That's crazy. Like, I don't think, I want to say I'm probably wrong, but like, that's the most Sega arcade games I've seen like in a Yakuza game, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
6 was, man, 6 lets you play so much. Like, and it's so funny because every time you go to the arcade, it's like, oh, this one's got different games in it. Like, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think I spent more time playing Virtua Fighter 5 than Yeah, I think I did. I spent more time playing Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown than I did playing or doing my review. I think like for one whole week, I was just playing that one game.
Right? Yeah. And that's the beauty of that game. And man, I'm looking at the chat room right now, and people are like triggered. They're like, man, I'm looking at that. They're like, Yakuza doesn't let you talk to every NPC. I'm like, that's true.
See, this is why I need to see, because also Jiggly, he's also a YouTuber. He does basically, if you're looking into like Virtua Fighter 5 or Virtua Fighter or Shenmue, he does a lot of content on his video, like the character backgrounds, why Virtua Fighter is more significant than Tekken, why you should play Shenmue. Like, he does really in-depth videos. So it would be interesting for me to see, you, who's a huge Yakuza fan, and Segalicious of Also Jiggly, who's a big Shenmue fan, like have I would love to see this collaboration happen, because I think it would be amazing.
Yeah. Like my whole thing with games is that, a lot of people think that I'm a snob because like I kind of don't play certain games and stuff, but come on, man, we only have so much time in the day. Like, wouldn't you want to play like the games that that you want to play? Like, because sometimes, especially in this hobby, right, like spending $60 on a game is a pretty hefty investment, especially, and I don't know about you, chat, if you guys have ever heard about this, but have you have that friend where they say like, oh, I know where you're at right now, don't worry, 20 hours later, the game's going to be good. I'm like, what? 20 hours later, it's going to be good? Or 10 hours later? And I'm like, dude, I didn't spend $60 on a game for it to only be partially good after a certain amount of freaking time, okay? I want it to be really good, or else it's going to go back to GameStop to be sold, And man, like, let me tell you this story, like, because we're on a Sega kick right now. There is one Sega game like during the previous gen that I did sell back because the localization for like the tutorial for this game was just so impenetrable to me that I literally tried like for a long time to learn this game, but I couldn't get into it. And that's Resonance of Fate, that RPG that Tri-Ace made.
Oh my god, dude. I thought it was just me. I couldn't get into that game either.
You too.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It's crazy, right? And here's the thing too. It's not like I didn't give the game a chance. The whole week that I had a game, I literally kept restarting from scratch, just to learn the battle system. And there was even this one part that I couldn't do what the freaking tutorial wanted me to do. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't freaking do this. Like, the way that you're explaining it doesn't make sense. And yeah, I can look for YouTube and stuff or game facts, but it's my firm belief that if your game can't explain the most basic shit within the first hour of the game, well then, how do you think I'm going to feel 20 hours down the line, 30 hours down the line, Because this is an RPG.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of the games, like that game, I've heard how great it is. I'm like, I don't deny it. I just don't understand what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Right? It's like, dude, what's going on here? Like, I know you guys made like Star Ocean and all that stuff. That's cool. But man, this sucks.
Oh man, Sega needs to, if Sega's gonna bring anything back.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No.
I'm excited that they are bringing back the real Valkyria Chronicles. They're bringing over Valkyria Chronicles 4 here in the US this year. I am stoked about that. And I'm not talking about these bastardized versions like last year with Valkyria Revolution, where it's a Dynasty Warriors clone, but by the way, worse than Dynasty Warriors, which is really difficult to do. By the way,
I never even opened it. I have it and I haven't opened it.
It's so bad. Like, people played it. Like, I have friends and listeners who played it and they're like, yeah, this isn't worth it. And of course, later in 2017, it dropped down to like $20. And I think it's dropped down to as low as $10 recently, which I'm like, holy crap. Jiggly is actually asking, how about the Shining games? Shining Force is great. the new upcoming Shining Force has the same battle engine as Valkyria Revolution, so avoid it at all costs. Avoid it. I want the old school. Like, my girlfriend is a huge Shining Force fan, and she's lamented the death of the series ever since they moved away from the turn-based strategy that it had. And to be quite honest, I would like to see Sega actually remake that in, like, in a Square Enix fashion where it's got newer graphics and stuff like that without ruining the gameplay. I think that's good. Sega should look into it. Will Sega do it? No, because they have a collection coming with Shining Force in there. But hey, a dude can dream, right?
And see, that's the thing I understand about like Sega. And I can even say this about Capcom, Konami as well. Like Sega really had so many amazing. You want an RPG? Sega, for the most part, was giving Square a run for their money.
Oh yeah,
like with the Shining Force series, with the Phantasy Star series, with even Nintendo when they had like what was that game? Was it something?
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, like they were. Sega was seriously innovating, and it just it blows my mind that nowadays they just focus on Sonic. I mean, Yakuza 2, and I'm happy they're doing Yakuza, but just...
I mean, remember Golden Sun? Nintendo like had that huge franchise in the GBA, and then all of a sudden, bloop, it's gone.
Gone.
Yeah. It was a really good series too. And let's not forget, like, the last hurrah for RPGs for Sega, I think, in the Dreamcast era, which I think is like one of my favorite games, which is Skies of Arcadia. I mean, that game.
You mean this game right here?
Yes, that game right there. Yeah, it's a great game.
Oh, man.
But here's the thing, though. There is good news for this, because I don't know if you know about this, but Sega of America is not really Sega anymore.
Really? It's Atlas, right?
Yeah. And so because Atlas has taken over, that's why we're starting to see a lot more games from them. And that's why we're going to see Valkyria Chronicles 4 this year. Because Atlas is the kind of company that's like, you think you can't make money out of Yakuza? Hold my beer. And look at where we're at right now. Kiwami 2 is coming out in the summer, and Yakuza 6 is coming out on Tuesday. So Atlas has been the single best thing that has ever happened to Sega of America in a long ass time. And we've got a lot to thank for them. And yeah, we're getting the Shining Force game, which isn't good. But if this was old Sega, we wouldn't even be seeing anything or hearing anything about those. So it's good that we're getting them. It's bad that it's a bad game.
Man, because I was just thinking right now, I was like, man, if Sega had the rights to the license for... Or not Sega, but if Atlas still had the legal rights to own Double Dragon like they did when they did the Double Dragon Advance, oh, man.
Yeah.
They could take Double Dragon, and even I think they did the River Sea Ransom one as well, the remake that was on the Game Boy Advance. Like, if they had the ability to do that, good God, I can imagine like a modern take on those two games would be phenomenal.
It would. And the thing is, it's kind of crazy is that, I want to, and actually to answer Jiggly's question, Sega did acquire Atlas, but in the United States, and here's some factoids for you. And to be clear, I'm not looking at like Wikipedia or anything like that. I'm just going by memory. Around the time that Yakuza 5 came out that year, there was actually a lot of shuffling happening in the background, because what they did was they closed Sega's San Rafael office up north. Like, they completely closed it, and all of Sega, only a few people from Sega, moved to Atlas's offices. Now, for the longest time, for a whole year, people didn't know how to brand themselves. Are they part of Atlas? Are they part of Sega? And that's where we started getting a lot of these people who, for example, made Yakuza and to do the localization, And so really, like, all of the quality localizations that we've ever gotten in Atlas, well, Sega has it now. And because Atlas is really Sega of America at this point, it's, like, they are a lot more responsible when it comes to money, and they know how to realistically say, okay, Yakuza is going to earn this much, not sell 7 million copies. Okay. So they can actually say that with confidence. Because really the biggest problem with Sega of America is they think, oh, Yakuza, it's like GTA, right? 7 million copies. No, that doesn't work that way. You know, and it's kind of really crazy. And Dinth actually talks about something about like Yakuza 5 not having a physical release. And there's actually a story behind that, and I'm going to tell the story.
All right. Story time. Let's go.
Story time. So Yakuza 5 was digital was because of two things. One, if you remember, Sony had that promotion where you had to tweet at them to tell you about like the games that you wish to be made, which is why we got Shenmue 3, which is why we got the Final Fantasy 7 remake, and which is why we got Yakuza 5. But behind the scenes, what actually happened was that it was a compromise that Atlus had with Sega of Japan, because Atlus wanted to prove to Sega of Japan that Yakuza can still be profitable in the US. You just have to set a very specific expectation. The compromise that they had was to make it digital only, because they didn't want to spend more money than they did. Because, you know, Atlus was trying to prove a point. Like, hey, if you do this digitally, you know, it's going to be a lot cheaper. Thankfully, Yakuza 5 actually sold really well, which is why we got Yakuza 6, which is why we got 0, Kiwami, and the list goes on and so forth. Unfortunately, they're not going to ever go back and make physical copies or ports of older games. I'm talking about Ishin, Kenzan, you know, the samurai side stories, which is why I bought the Ishin on Japanese PlayStation Store like recently for some reason. I don't know like a Japanese, but heck, I want a Yakuza game. And why Yakuza 5 is not going to have a physical release. So I know this is kind of a bad news kind of story, but you guys now know why Yakuza 5 is digital only. And thank goodness it was, because now we're getting all of them physically as well.
Hey man, that's something.
I have a lot of useless trivia in my brain that I'm still trying to figure out how to disseminate in videos. So it's a huge problem, because I can think of facts more faster than I can make videos, because man, it's kind of nuts.
So since we're speaking on that, I mean, since Sega has Atlus now, that means that they have the Persona series, everything that they have. What is it, the Etrian Odyssey as well?
Yes.
Ooh, so Sega's back in the game.
Yeah, but of course, you know, like the Etrian Odyssey and Persona is going to be published as an Atlus game. But the interesting thing is Nagoshi-san, the guy who runs Sega, was, by the way, responsible for the Yakuza series. He actually mentioned within the past year or so that he wants to go back to Sega's back catalog and revive some older games that have been part of Sega's past. Now, this is quite nebulous. You don't really know what that means, but people are thinking like Streets of Rage or Afterburner and these like old school games like Phantasy Star, for example. And man, or even Shining Force, like, can you imagine like a modern Shining Force game that actually plays like the old one? That's crazy. Or even a Streets of Rage that might just be Yakuza with using the Yakuza engine. You know, that's kind of insane.
I mean, you know, I'm all down for it. Like, think about the way he directs his games. I could see him doing amazing with it.
Yeah.
See, Rashad, he said Altered Beast.
Oh yeah, Altered Beast.
Oh man.
Yeah. And yeah, Triple M, you know, you got it, man. Like Yakuza 5 being digital only was a sacrifice for the greater good. And because of that, now you can order, if you have an Amazon link, you should pimp it, man. You can order that Yakuza 6 limited edition collector's edition with the shot glasses and the ice cubes, you know, for a good price. It's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely do it. I mean, and honestly, guys, if you know, Yakuza 6 is a phenomenal game. Alex and I both, you know, we both have it already. We've had it for, well, I'd say like the last month or so.
Oh, yeah.
And it is amazing.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, that Game Collector, another awesome YouTuber. He just popped up in the chat. He said
Binary Domain is great. It's really good.
Man, that game is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Panzer Dragoon. I would love to see another one. Crazy.
The thing is, like, if they actually port Crazy Taxi or make a new Crazy Taxi, I want Offspring to come back.
That soundtrack is classic, though.
I know, man. I still remember dropping off my customers on the, you know, at KFC and Tower Records, man.
Man, I
Yeah.
I just miss everything about the Dreamcast days. Like when Sega was just throwing out bangers left and right. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was. If you're a huge Sega fan, and and this is kind of something that I've done recently,
Mhm.
I actually started reading a lot of audiobooks when it comes to like video game history and stories and stuff. There's a really good book called The Console Wars, and what it is it's actually an account of Sega, Nintendo, and Sony in the '90s era, where they
Mhm.
basically like got up and stuff and how they were fighting, and it's told in all three perspectives in Sega, Nintendo, and Sony. It's really
Mhm.
primarily about Sega and how they basically kicked Nintendo's ass and how they slowly lost control to Sony. And there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you've never heard of ever before that is in that. Like the politics behind Sega,
Yeah.
the Sega Pico, remember that one? The
Yeah. Yeah.
entertainment?
Yeah.
Yeah, they talk about that as well. Like how, Kalinsky, the president of Sega of America, was like, you're gonna price this at $99 or you should just cancel this project. Of course, we know it's sold for like $200 for some freaking reason, but if you read the book, you're gonna be privy to this information. So definitely go check that out if you have the chance. It's pretty damn long though, but it talks about some really neat stuff that I've never heard before. So go check that out.
Definitely. I will definitely do that, man. See, you started something in the chat. You got people talking about Offspring right now.
That's right, Jiggly. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Dude, like that's still in my brain. Like that's the song that pops into my brain every time somebody says Crazy Taxi.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Oh man. They should also bring back virtual tennis. I
Dude,
would
they should
love
bring
to.
back a lot of things. Virtual tennis was like that was man for the longest time. That was like my favorite tennis game, and I don't even play tennis games.
Yeah.
So good. It's so good. It's really
So
crazy.
so with that being said, I gotta ask you, did you view the original Xbox as the Dreamcast too?
I did not actually, because the
Really?
funny thing about that is that the Xbox at the time had the same specs as my PC, so I actually viewed it as my PC. Like the exact same Pentium processor, 733 megahertz. I was like, this is just my PC. Why do I have this again? Oh, that's right, because Halo is on it. So I remember back in college, I had my Xbox and this is gonna sound bad, especially for the people who do value the importance of financial aid. But I used my financial aid money to actually get my first flat screen HD TV for college.
Hey, I did the same thing. I'm not judging
Okay.
you.
All right. Okay. I'm just saying, like, there's some people who are like, why did you use that? Other people could use that money. I'm like, yeah, I used it to get a flat screen 720p TV. And so like we would basically like just kind of hang around like my dorm room and stuff, and we'd do like 16 player LAN, like Halo and stuff, man. And
Mhm.
also when Halo 2 came out, oof, that was fun. And it was cool too because our dorm was like 3 floors high, but it was
Mhm.
all local area networked. So literally we just plug it to the wall and somebody would like literally the other team would be playing downstairs and we can't look over their screens and stuff to see where they are. You know how that happens. So it's pretty crazy.
Oh man. See, we completely went off topic because of y'all in the chat. The Sega heads came out. We just went on Sega,
Yeah.
and man, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta ask you. So when it comes to fighting games, what do you think is the current state of fighting games? Do you think the gaming in general, like for fighting games, I guess gaming in general, like do you think it's as good now as it was back then, or do you think with practices like the DLC issues that companies like EA and Ubisoft are initiating, do you think that's ruining gaming as a whole? Like we're paying $60, but we're not really getting a full game. Like what's your take?
My take on it, well, first of all, I want to address the chat and say I wish Virtua Fighter would come back. I wish there was a Virtua Fighter 6 that Sega hasn't announced yet because I'm a huge Virtua Fighter fan first and then Tekken second. But to answer your question, I feel like fighting games are actually it might sound weird, but it's actually really healthy right now because we have a game in Street Fighter 5 that is extremely catered towards like the fighting game community. that, some people might hate, but it's actually brought back a lot more people from the Dreamcast era, like the Third Strike era, to play Street Fighter again. That's huge. And I actually really like the model that they have where you literally can just play the game, and the more you play the game, you get credit and you get your character. You could literally not have to spend a single dime. You just need to play the game more. And I think that's not a bad price to pay for the kind of game that Street Fighter V is. Second of all, I think that Dragon Ball Fighter Z, I know they call it Fighters, but I'm going to call it Fighter Z, really brought a lot more mainstream attention into fighting games again because it's Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is actually the second largest fighting game community, second only to Street Fighter V. And even people who I've never talked about fighting games with are talking to me about fighting games because of Dragon Ball. And that's amazing to me because the last time that happened, Street Fighter 2 came out, or Mortal Kombat, actually, that era. So I think fighting games are pretty healthy. I can't say the same for individual games, though, because there is this weird stigma with fighting games where, the fighting game community can shun a game completely. And because of that, it will just lose a community. A good example is ARMS on the Switch. I love ARMS on the Switch. I have it. I feel like it's a great game, but the fighting game community just refuses to support it. But there is a grassroots movement on Reddit that's actually was born out of that. So they're trying to make it a thing. And so really, I think that, that genre is really healthy. The biggest problem is that, people still think that fighting games are this really incomprehensible thing. Like they can't play it because they have slow reflexes and stuff. But when they realize that it's less about the reflexes and more about strategy, then it'll take a bit of time to actually like reconfigure people's perception of it, just like Yakuza and GTA and all that stuff. And once that happens, I think more people will play fighting games and just try it out,
And that actually leads into one of my other questions. Like, well, since we're gonna talk about the fight game community, do you think, because they do draw heavy criticism in the sense that they say it's, a lot of people say it's plagued with a very toxic, elitist type of community. They often prevent newcomers from even wanting to play, fighting games or feel welcome. Like, do you feel like that is a barrier of entry for fighting games as a whole, like the fight game community itself?
It's weird to talk about it this way, but like, I feel that depending on where you are, the fighting game community can be open, but there are some places that can be less open. I think that the New York community, in Long Island and stuff like that, and the community in Southern California are probably the best fighting game communities I've ever seen because they're just so inclusive and stuff, and they will help you out. You can just go up to like, people like Arturo Sanchez and like, Alex Valle in Southern California and just totally, like respect, show respect and have them like play with you and spar with you and stuff. Like you can't do that in a lot of different places. And I think that's kind of really the true challenge of the fighting game community is that they're so concentrated on specific locations in the United States that, you just don't know if you go, like, for example, here in Portland and stuff, I don't know if it's going to be as inclusive as Southern California. I've never really heard about the Portland FGC. Like I know that they meet up from time to time, and I know that they've extended invitations and stuff, but honestly, I can't really tell you whether they would be friendly or not,
Yeah. I know out here in Hawaii, like the FGC out here is really, really good. I'm part of what we call it VGH or Video Gamers Hawaii, and we have like 2 tournaments every single week, statewide tournaments. There's actually going to be a tournament tonight for Tekken and Street Fighter 5. I'm gonna be entering because I gotta bust out Old Faithful.
Oh man, look at that!
I gotta bring it out.
Beautiful.
And put it to work this weekend or tonight actually. But yeah, like and you're very right when it comes to the fight game community because it really depends on where you are. Hawaii is really good. When I was in Washington, up in Kirkland, it was really, really good there. I agree with you about Southern California's FGC is really good. But I mean, it really does. It really depends on where you are.
And I'll add this. if there isn't any in your area, make one. Like be that fire that sparks the FGC in your community. Like for me, unfortunately, I'm not invested enough in the FGC to help out here. I would if I did. I'm at this point in my life, I'm more of a casual FGC like fighting game fan, but that hasn't stopped me from liking any games in fighting games, if anything. I have said to a few friends before that it's with Street Fighter 5, that's like the last fighting game I'll ever buy. And even like with Injustice 2, I actually told friends like, no, I'm not buying that game because, like I just don't like that game. But, if a new Mortal Kombat comes out, which I'm pretty sure they're going to reveal the new Mortal Kombat this year, you can bet your ass that I'm going to be there day one, like watching the trailer for it, because there are just some games or in some series that I will be there like to see and watch on day one, and just can't help it.
Exactly, man. That's something too, because I previously had History Behind the Warrior on my podcast a couple of days. Well, was it Sunday? I believe it's Sunday or no, Saturday. I had him on my podcast, and we were talking about the fighting games like that, and he's a big Injustice fan and big Mortal Kombat fan. I find it for me to be very hard to transition from, because I grew up Street Fighter fan.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to go from Street Fighter to Mortal Kombat system. I don't know why, but I can't get that flow to just work for me.
it's Mortal Kombat is more catered towards more casual fans. That's not to say that there's no depth to the system, but it's like if you think about how you activate the supers and stuff, like you just hold the bumpers and stuff, like it's more casual friendly in that way, because they know, because really like the best thing about NetherRealm as a studio is that they know how to make a fighting game that's not only good for like pros, but it's also got some mainstream potential. I mean, Injustice proved that, Mortal Kombat has proved that. And you can even look at, Mortal Kombat's history when they had like that chess game in Mortal Kombat and the kart racing game in Mortal Kombat, like they do weird stuff. But that's the thing that's kind of really, amazing about that company is they just don't give a crap. They will do whatever you think that they won't do and just surprise people. And that's why they sell more than Street Fighter. That's why they sell more than most fighting games out there, is because they know what their audience wants, what the casual players want,
So, Marvel versus Capcom Infinite.
Ooh.
We're going there. Is it dead? Is it dead?
Yeah. If Capcom has pulled the support of that game officially, which they did, it was supposed to be part of the Capcom Pro Tour, it's dead in the water. Yeah. 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 And there's actually like a 30-minute or it's more like an 18-minute video that Maximilian released recently, kind of explaining what he feels about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I actually watched part of it, and I couldn't help but agree that ever since they started showing it and stuff, it just felt like a rushed game. Like it had no soul. Not like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, or actually I'll even go back to Marvel vs. Capcom 2, where they just, they loved making those games, and for some reason Infinite just felt like a cash grab.
I felt like what they could have done with Infinite, if they were going to bring it back to the two-person system, they could have brought back the system or the engine that they had for MVC1 or X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. It's just, I mean, I enjoy it. I'm not going to say I don't. I really do enjoy it. I love the fact that I can have my team of X and Zero, because it's the only team I really like. But it's just, you could tell that they didn't put as much heart into it, and the fact that they really upset people with the comment about the X-Men characters, that really did them in.
Marketing also ruined that game, I think, and that's a big problem.
And that demo was horrible.
That demo was pretty bad too. I do want to kind of address some of the people like in the chat room though and stuff. Like, like Brawl is a weird situation where the FGC just refuses to accept Smash Brothers in any shape, way, or form. But that's the amazing thing about, Smash Brothers, is that it didn't really need the FGC. In fact, in this day and age, sometimes the FGC needs Smash in some ways, and that's kind of personally what I'm hoping was going to happen with ARMS, because I don't know, have you played ARMS at all? Nick, tried it?
I haven't. I love it.
Yeah, like it really has a lot of depth. It's simple, but it's more complicated than what it really is, and anybody can play it. I literally went to a meetup here and handed somebody the controls, and they were able to play it and understand what they were doing. I personally believe, and this might be another controversial statement, it's like the modern day Punch-Out. I know
it really is.
We talked about Punch-Out earlier when we started. It really feels like that. It's different a little bit, but it truly is. I was kind of hoping Little Mac would be one of the characters, but it is what it is. So
I mean, yeah, Spring Man.
Yeah, it's true. True. And so that's what I'm kind of hoping that ARMS would foster, is a huge community, just an underground community, that is away from the FGC, and hopefully like in, about 2 years or something like that, people recognize it and be like, okay, fine, we have to put it in Evo now because you got 1,000 participants. Okay.
Because I think it still has a very active online community too.
It does. There are people still streaming it. It actually shows up from time to time in Alex Valle's Wednesday Night Fights in SoCal. So like he's really active on it. You want to talk about games that are kind of dead in the water when it comes to competitive? We don't need to look further than 2018's Final Fantasy Dissidia, which, man, and I know like people might get pissed off at that, but like, Dissidia is this weird game where I played it during this open beta and the closed beta, and I'm like, how are you going to present this to people? There's a lot of shit happening here. I don't think, and you have a lot of gauges. You have 1 million gauges. I don't see how people will understand what the hell's going on the screen. And then the funny thing is, when they were doing that little competitive gaming tournament, like for Dissidia in January, when asked about a spectator mode, Square Enix was like, oh, we don't have one yet. You don't have one yet for a game that's 3 versus 3, and it's kind of like a shooter. Okay. Good talk.
I was going to ask you like your opinion on that, because I got it. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I kind of felt that it was a step down from the last Dissidia Duodecim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's... look, there's pedigree behind Dissidia. Team Ninja made it. The guys who made Dead or Alive. So it should be good, technically. I was actually expecting kind of like a Dead or Alive game where it's more responsive and all that stuff. But we got a Dissidia game, which is basically like the PSP games, which were slow to begin with. Yeah. And now it's mildly better. Mildly. Because it doesn't have like the RPG aspects of the other PSP games. So what now?
I mean, they could have. I would have enjoyed like a Dead or Alive engine, or hell, even them taking it to like throw in a Power Stone type engine, anything but what they had. I played it, I streamed it a couple times. I do enjoy it, but it's just not. And it's on sale now too, just in case you guys are wondering.
Oh, really?
it's I think I what is it? Wario64. He tweeted out it's like $30 or so.
Mm-hmm. Hey Tyler, how's it going, man? I do want to kind of address Jiggly though. I don't think Itagaki is responsible for Team Ninja's success. I think it's the team is more so responsible for their own success, because if you think about it, I know that some people didn't like Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma and stuff when it got ported to PS3 and stuff, but if you consider the successes that they have had, which include Neo from last year, I mean, I'm hoping people have played that game. It's an amazing game, and that's the team. They actually did a fantastic job of that game, because people are thinking like, oh, they've gone soft because Itagaki is there, but I'm like, wait a second. A game is not made by one person, it's made by a team. And if you really think about that and think about like Itagaki's involvement, there are even reports right now that come out where they said that Itagaki was even barely responsible for some of the parts in Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2. So he was just there to kind of spurt out ideas. And of course, the real proof that we get for that you really do need a capable team to execute your vision is Devil's Third. Remember that, Turd?
Ooh.
I mean, you know, that's Itagaki right there, guys. Let's think about that for a second.
Hmm.
You're not a real gamer till you beat Devil's Third. Wow. Oh, that's
Oh
great.
man.
That's great.
Well, hey, I like you have a strong opinion. I personally I'm gonna say this. I haven't played Devil's Third. Every time I want to buy it because it's almost impossible to find out here in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I do see it, it's on Craigslist and people want like $100 for it. So I'm like, I don't know.
Oh, man. Like, wow, chat is blowing up because of Devil's Third. Look at that. What have we done? What have we done?
Oh man. So, Smash Bros, since we touched on that earlier, so it's often considered by many as a great fighting game, and yet on the other hand, there's a vocal majority who view it as nothing more than a party game. What is
Mm-hmm.
your take on the status of Smash Brothers being part of the fighting game genre and the FGC?
Look, like players of Brawl and Melee have proven that there is nuance and depth in Smash Brothers. So yes, it's absolutely a fighting game. I might not understand it, but that doesn't mean that it disqualifies it as a fighting game. The last time I checked, I wasn't like the fighting game commissioner here or something like that. Nothing needs to pass through me in order for it to become a fighting game. So I might not understand it, but Smash Brothers is a fighting game.
Yeah, so I own all the Smash Brothers games from the 64 up until now. I'm not very good at them. I've always viewed them as a casual party game, and I have learned to not say it that it's a casual party game, even though I still say it because I draw the wrath of a lot of people who take Smash Bros to a high regard that it's like life. But
Hey, that's your passion. Go if
yeah,
that's your jam, go for it, man.
and I'm like, to me, it's like I enjoy it. But I remember when they first brought it out as a party game, and I looked at that the same way that I looked at Power Stone, and I'm like, they're fun party games.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like the depth of it, I mean, you're right. Brawl and Melee have shown that people can really take it to a whole different platform of what you can really think you can do with it. And it's I'm happy that they have a competitive gaming community, but that's one of the other things that a lot of people have stated is that the Smash community comes off as kind of toxic, and I honestly think any community can just because of people and passion. But what's your take?
I mean, if you look at the FGC back around Street Fighter Cross Tekken, there was that reality show that Capcom produced, remember? And Ares, Bactanians, if you remember who he is, like he was under fire for being like volatile and all that stuff. Like a whole bunch of media criticized him. But fast forward to now, and Ares is one of the sweetest, most awesome people you've ever meet on Twitch. And while he is still a Tekken personality and stuff, he's learned that a maturity needs to happen. It doesn't make you less gangsta if you're nicer, which that seems to be the FGC thing. But at the same time, like in the Smash Brothers community, it's as a young community, I feel like naturally you're gonna have some toxic members of your community and stuff. You're gonna have those nice people, but hopefully like the people who are seen as its champions, the guys who really fight to make it into like a legit recognized fighting game by the FGC, hopefully they're the guys that are kind of balancing that whole negativity of it so that they're seen more as opposed to the negativity that permeates on the bottom. Because you're right, like negativity exists everywhere. How we can combat it? Not necessarily with positivity, but understanding why they're negative and also showing the people like, hey, not all the people in this community are douchebags. Like, like if you want to talk to me about it, go right ahead. Here's my email or whatever,
Very, very true, man. That's true. And the last question I'll have on Smash: do you think the new Smash is coming to the Switch? Is it a port of the one that was on the Wii U and the 3DS, or is it a whole new game?
Let's see. I don't think it's going to be port of the 3DS and stuff. I want it to be a new game. I hope it's a new game, because I think that at this point we need a new Smash. And the thing is, like, as good as Brawl is, I feel like the community at large, the people who are hardcore into it and stuff, the pros, like, feel like Melee is still kind of like the, standard bearer of the series. And I would like them to make the new standard bearer of the series.
Mhm.
It would be like the equivalent of us playing Street Fighter 2 as opposed to like Street Fighter 5, like,
Mhm.
or Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, like, that's kind of ridiculous. Like, listen to your fans, take a look at that game and see why it was popular, and build your game around that. You could still have your guest characters like Bayonetta and all that stuff, but like, there's more to do. You could do so much more.
Indeed. Switching gears, I wanted to ask you, and this is going to be about the Xbox One X. With it having, apparently, it's done very well here in the U.S., in the West in general, like even in Japan. Is it safe to say that the One X is a step in the right direction? Would you consider it a mid-console generation refresh, or it's technically the next generation? They're just not saying it.
It's a half step. I mean, and a lot of people say it's a whole step and stuff, just because it has like the extra X in there. Let's call it for what it is. It is Sony and Microsoft testing to see if they introduce much more powerful specs for an x86 architecture will break previous games that they've released on the same platform. This is an experiment to see if they can do that with the PlayStation 5 or with the next Xbox, whatever the hell is going to be, Xbox 2. I don't know what the hell. This is more of an experiment to see if that's doable. Moreover, this is an experiment to see if we can treat consoles like we do our phones, where we upgrade it every 2 years and stuff. That's really what it is, because they're looking at the mobile market, which is, according to the media, it's what is going to quote unquote kill consoles. Oh no, it's not. By the way, it's not going to do that. Power difference is huge. The amount of wattage is ridiculous. Kind of, for some reason, this reminds me of like that one side mission in Yakuza 0 where, like Majima meets somebody who has like a prototype cell phone, and a cell phone is literally a man bag. And I'm like, yeah, if you want, mobile phones to basically deliver the same power as consoles, you need a battery that freaking big, okay? Like, honestly. But joking aside, it really is that. I'm going to call it as that. It's basically like a way for console developers and publishers to introduce the cell phone upgrade model to us. And if anything, this just basically means that the future consoles are probably going to be, backwards compatible, which is great.
And that's one of the things I really like, that, a lot of people don't give Microsoft the credit for it. And I see a lot that like to crap on Xbox as a brand. But the fact that they have one console that's having backwards compatibility with its two previous iterations is quite amazing.
It's a feat of engineering, definitely.
Yeah. And, they're adding more and more games to the backwards compatibility. I mean, Panzer Dragoon's Orta is going to be added. They're going to be throwing in, what's the other games? All the Star Wars games that came out on the Xbox back in the original Xbox back in the day. So you got your Battlefront, the true Battlefront 1 and 2, Jedi Academy, Starfighter. Like, they're going to be on it. You've got, there's so much that they're doing with it. And I think I really like that. And that's why I never understood why Sony just, they're like, oh yeah, if you want to play these backwards compatible games, you need to get our PlayStation Now service, which is not good if you're playing games that require you to have reflexes, and there's that lag factor.
Yeah, so here's the bad part about that. And, I actually used to work as a tester at Activision, so I know certain things and stuff. But Sony, unfortunately, when they were creating the PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2, they didn't put software DRM on their discs. What does that mean? Like, why does it matter to us? Well, that basically means that if you literally burn a PlayStation 1 disc or a PlayStation 2 disc, your PlayStation 4, if it was backwards compatible, would have absolutely no idea that it was a copied game. No idea. You know what actually determines what it is? A freaking text file on the disc itself. That was their copy predict. Oh, actually, no. Specifically, there is a bad sector that is on that disc, a actual built-in flaw on the physical disc itself that actually tells the console, like, hey, this is a PlayStation game and stuff. And because it's not software, that's why they're unable to offer it, because they're afraid that people will just play pirated games on the PlayStation 4. Now, the thing is with Microsoft, because it's Microsoft, they were smart to put in DRM from the very beginning, from the Xbox, original Xbox. So that's why they're able to do this, because they can, they can basically check their games and see if they're legit copies. They can do that from the hardware to the software side. So unfortunately, that's how it is. Now, why can't we even play the digital stuff? That I don't know, because that to me is dumb. Like, we have digital games on our PS3 that play PS1 games, right? Like, that's what they sold on our PS3s. But somehow those are unavailable on the PS4 for some, reason. And that to me is what shocks me.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. And since we're on the topic of the Xbox, do you think the Xbox One is a failure as a platform, like a lot of the media tries to portray it to be?
That's actually a really good question. It's relative to basically like it's obviously like a platform's performance is relative to its competitor. So if you really look at it that way, yes, it's a failure. But one thing to think about with the Xbox and stuff is that they have, ever since they did the whole Kinect mistake in 2013 and stuff, like, they've bounced back tremendously, probably more so than Sony, because Sony is the leader. But that's the thing that's kind of crazy about this industry and stuff, is that, like, you think you know everything, and then things like the Xbox press conference happens where they say, like, you can't sell games to for secondhand anymore. And that's just a sign that whoever was at the top really didn't understand the kinds of players who would buy a console. Like, when a lot of media back in the previous gen foretold the death of consoles, I laughed at their faces, because I was like, are you freaking kidding me? There is no way that consoles are going to die. Because if you're going to tell me that Joe Schmo out there, or my coworker who basically bought a PlayStation, would want to build a PC that is worth twice the amount and piece it together himself, or pay somebody else to do it, you're wrong. You're totally wrong. Like, PC gaming, I love PC gaming and stuff. I wish I played my PC more. Heck, one of my favorite games is Heroes of the Storm on the PC. It's one of my favorite. And I have a second copy of freaking Overwatch on PC. I want to play that game. But I don't have a PC good enough to play it, first of all. And second of all, and stuff like, there's a lot more co-op games coming out on consoles these days, surprisingly enough. But I think, to kind of widen the net, so to speak, and stuff, like, people are even saying, like, oh, well, PC gaming is, like, crap and stuff because they're not selling a lot of copies. I'm like, the last time I checked, the reason why we play games is not because of how many copies it sold, but because we actually enjoy the games, So again, it doesn't matter what platform you play the games in. What matters is you can play them and you enjoy them. End of story.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time on Twitter when they're like, well, this game was a flop because they only sold or moved this many units, or sold this many millions. And I'm over here like, but is it fun?
Right? Yeah. Like a good example lately is Assassin's Creed Origins. I got that game when it was like, I pre-ordered that game actually. And when I got it and played it, for some reason, it didn't feel like an Assassin's Creed game. Now, I know this is subjective because obviously the guys who made the game know what their vision is of the series and where it's headed, but it felt more like Witcher 3 for me. And while I love Witcher 3, that's not why I play Assassin's Creed. I play it because of the parkour. What's going on here that I'm not getting my parkour in an Assassin's Creed game,
Yeah, very, very true. That's one game I need to get around to playing. I stopped playing Assassin's Creed with Syndicate.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people said that Origins was what would bring, like, it brought a lot of people back to the franchise. And I don't know. What's your take on that?
Oh, that's nice for them. I'm not looking for what they found good about Origins, because if it was really that good, I would be there playing right now. And mind you, I've tried playing the game and starting the game 3 times. I've not stuck with it.
Ooh.
Yeah, that says something, right? That says something that when you start a game and you just can't get to be like to play it. Instead, your feeling is like, oh, do I have to play Assassin's Creed Origins? You know, like that kind of feeling. That's bad.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you too, like, since we're on the topic of well, no, we're actually not. We're not on the topic. We're gonna go to the topic. So we're gonna talk about Final Fantasy and RPGs.
Sure.
I want to ask you this: when it comes to Final Fantasy, it seems like ever since 10, there's been a major departure from what the series or the roots of the series are. You know, they did a very sharp one with 10 being so linear, with 12 being more like 11 in the MMO style. 13, I'm not really sure what they were doing. I enjoyed 13, but I feel like when they did 13-2 and then Lightning Returns, they lost a lot of people on that. And then here we are at 15. A lot of people are upset with 15 because they said you get to layer chapters. This feels rushed. And then now they're throwing in all this extra DLC. They've made the Game of the Year version. Then there's the deluxe version, and now there's the Royal Edition. Do you think that Square with Final Fantasy has hate to put it this way, do you feel like they've hoarded the system out, the series out?
I don't think so, because Final Fantasy has always been about change. Huge changes, huge sweeping changes, because we didn't have the active time battle system in the first 3 games. We got that in 4. You know, like we never got 3D graphics and, and all that stuff. Of course, that's in there. The battle systems have continuously changed from game to game, whether we like them or not. It's always been a Final Fantasy thing. I think, right now what's happening is that they're trying to bring Final Fantasy to a much larger audience. That's really like what they're trying to do. But at the same time, make sure that the fans of the series are happy with it. I think 15, ultimately, at the end of the day, I feel like it's kind of failed to some degree. And I say to some degree because they still keep making content for it. Like, let it rest. Make the next Final Fantasy. We would much rather see you take all your experience from this, make a new game, as opposed to fixing this game that's been in development for more than 10 years. Because really, what's happened with 15 is that Tabata, who is the current director, this is not really his game. As much as he's tried to change 15, it's really Tetsuya Nomura's game, when it was Versus 13. So, essentially he's kind of eating at the scraps, if you will, of what this engine is capable of and what's actually done with the system. And with the 4 DLCs announced next year, it doesn't feel like it's a genuine, like, yeah, we're doing this because you guys love it, right? It's more like, well, we have this stuff, we made it, so here you go. And I actually chuckled when they said that they had an episode Noctis as one of the DLC. And I said, wait a second.
Hold up. What?
Right? You're getting
the main character.
He's the entirety of 15, dude. How are you making the episode Noctis when the entire game was all about Noctis to begin with? How? Oh, it's insane. I'm even knocking over like my pop filter, just like gesturing crazily, like with that. And so that's actually, now here's the thing. Final Fantasy 14 is the best Final Fantasy nobody's ever played. And it's an MMO. It's more Final Fantasy than any Final Fantasy that's ever been released since 10. And that's kind of insane to me to think about. I'm actually a huge proponent of Final Fantasy 14. In fact, I have a series called Travel Eorzea, where it's actually an interesting project because it's me interviewing people about why they like the world of Final Fantasy 14 in such a way that we're kind of talking about it like it's a real place. And what's amazing about 14 is they know how to inject just enough nostalgia so that you'll be invested in the story, which, by the way, it has a really good story and it's got really good characters as well. And, and at the same time be an MMO, which, it has all its flaws and advantages. One of my favorite things in Final Fantasy 14 that happened very recently was they added my favorite Final Fantasy villain, Kefka, into one of the raids in Final Fantasy 14, and you can fight him in his god form. I mean, I don't know if you're a big Final Fantasy 6 fan, but it is there.
Form Kefka?
Yes. He is in the game.
Are you playing this on PC or PS4?
Actually, here's the funny thing. Final Fantasy 14 is cross-platform, and you won't even notice what platform everybody's playing at because they all look the same. So the PS4 is playing with the PC and playing with the Mac. And yes, I said Mac. That sounds weird, but let's deal with it.
Because, okay, so I bought Final Fantasy 14 on PS4. Well, actually, I'm being more correct. I actually bought it originally back when it was on the PS3.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got the PS4 version.
You got that for free, right? I hope you got that for free because they actually offered a free upgrade of the PS3 version.
I bought the game and then I realized it was for free.
Okay.
And then I got the Stormblood one.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I think I locked it because I switched my PlayStation 3 account and I locked the Final Fantasy 14 account to that old PSN account, and I didn't know how to, unlock it from that account. So it's just like I gave up on it.
Oh,
I want to get, but I enjoyed it when I was playing it. Enjoyed the hell out of it, but I've just sat on it for like the last 2-3 years, and I'm like, I feel like I'm missing out.
Yeah, you should just play the main story because there's a lot of really cool stuff that happens there. Lots of really cool surprises and stuff. And I want to shout out to anybody there who basically says, specifically Mainly Gaming, who enjoyed the job system in 3 and 5. If hopefully you have played Bravely Default because that has one of the better job systems in the modern day. Really great game. 14 is pretty amazing. Like they just added Samurai and Red Mage is fucking amazing in this game. Like they're a combination fencer and black magic and white magic user. Holy crap. Like they actually nailed the feel of this. And not, most jobs, and actually all the jobs don't play the same. I main a scholar, so I'm a healer and stuff. I've been playing it since 2014 in May, and I still have a subscription for it. And again, like it's the best Final Fantasy nobody's ever played, and I always push it to people, especially since it has a free demo, actually, a free trial. You can play all the way up to level 35 for free, including the main story, which allows you to actually get chocobos, fight Ifrit and Titan, and experience a lot of the story. It's really freaking cool.
I'm just going to create a new account and just start over. Just say screw it.
You can probably contact Square Enix and they'll figure out your situation. They kind of suck when it comes to like reaction time, but they're pretty good when it comes to, these kinds of issues, these account issues and stuff.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about Square and their RPGs, like do you feel like with was it the Octopath Travelers coming out? Do you feel like they're putting a lot into making that because of, in my opinion, the failure that was Final Fantasy 15?
I don't feel like there's any effort, and this might sound bad, but when I first played it on the Switch, some of it reminded me of Saga Frontier. And if you remember Saga Frontier, it was kind of a little bit broken. I'm not implying that it's going to come out in the same fashion, no, but they need to, for a game that's supposed to come out this year, they should show more of that game. I am puzzled that they're not talking about anything about that game since the demo in January. Sure, it's a demo, but we've only played 2 characters. We need more.
Yeah, very, very true. The battle system, though, how do you feel about it?
I actually really like it. Now, I don't know about the chat room and stuff, like what you guys think about this. Persona 5 is my current favorite JRPG of all time. Okay.
Really?
That battle system, yeah, that battle system is super snappy. I mean, I'm saying that, but it always changes between Persona 5 and Persona 4 Golden. So depending on how I feel, it's either one or the two. Persona has taken over Final Fantasy for me if I want like an old school kind of snappy JRPG experience. And I feel that in order for JRPGs to be really good and accepted mainstream, you actually don't need to turn it into an action game like Final Fantasy 15. You just need to make that the battle system fast.
Yeah.
And Persona 5 has that. Persona 4 has that. And to some degree, Dragon Quest 11 has that. And Bravely Default, which I mentioned, also has that. So there are games out there that exhibit this really speedy formula. Now, when I say fast, I'm not talking about loss of strategy, of course, but I want it to be responsive. If I just hit the attack button, dude, freaking attack. I don't have to watch an animation of you running like 50 miles just to attack somebody, you know? Or watch like a summon animation that takes 30 seconds. It's like, no, like just do it.
And I guess the last question I have with Square Enix, what are your thoughts on the Final Fantasy VII remake?
I don't know. And I think they have some really good ideas. Again, we are in a situation where they showed us a trailer, just like Final Fantasy Versus 13, and also heard that Tetsuya Nomura is directing it, which is also like Final Fantasy Versus 13. So you see the pattern here, why I can't really say anything much about this. We've seen this before. This is history repeating itself, it looks like.
I'm not happy with the idea that it's going to be 3 different full price games, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also not happy with the fact that they're changing it to real time action. Like, I loved the original combat when you could actually get it to go faster. I was expecting, just a retooling of the original combat system, but if it's going to be like 15, ew.
Yeah, I mean, if you, like it's weird, right? But think about what's happened lately in the news, and especially in the chat. I'm pretty sure, some of you guys are hardcore PC gamers as well. The recent release of Chrono Trigger, where, for some reason, when they did that filter thing, Square Enix was genuinely surprised that people wanted the old graphics. I'm like, are you serious? You're surprised we want the old looking graphics? Really? In an age where we have Stardew Valley selling millions of dollars, you're surprised that people want that? Really? Okay.
I like what that game collector said in the chat. He said the Xeno games are better than any modern Final Fantasy from what I know of each that I've played. Okay. I agree.
Xenosaga, right? Because Xeno games, plural, implies that there's more than one game in the series. And it can't be Xenogears because there's only been one game in the series.
We all know Xenogears is... We know they're connected. We know they're all connected, especially with how Xenoblade Chronicles 2 ended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Xenosaga and Blades, yeah. Shinobu, yeah, they actually just patched the Steam version of Chrono Trigger, so you could basically change it to the old sprites. So thankfully they patched that. You know what's funny about this, man? They actually sent me a press release. A press release announcing that they patched Chrono Trigger so it won't look bad anymore.
I got that one too.
I laughed so hard. I was like, what? Really? That's such a big deal for you guys. Good for you. Good for you that doing the right thing needs a freaking press release. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay, so we're gonna talk about Konami. Gotta ask you.
Mm-hmm.
And I've asked this question before to that Game Collector when I had him on my show, and also to Xander Skillian. So I'm gonna ask you this: has Konami become an irrelevant developer, or are they slowly making a comeback in the West, given the success in Japan and the West with their pachinkos and whatnot? And Do you feel that because of Kojima fans that they're unwilling to give Konami a chance again, or is it just that the quality has
plummeted?
yeah.
um, I think that Konami is trying to find a way to get back, and it might sound extreme that they fired Kojima and all that stuff, and there has to be some hostility there, of course. And let's face it, we don't really know what's going on. We know like things from rumors and secondhand accounts and stuff that things happen really badly. Like even the video game awards from like what 2-3 years ago where Kojima couldn't attend, that's bad. You're right.
Yeah.
I don't think Konami is going anywhere in terms of video games. I think they're kind of trying to figure out a way to have their cake and eat it too, which means they're trying to get back into the video game industry but spend as less money as possible. But they're not Atlas. They're not that smart, unfortunately. Atlas has some really great partners that they work with, which is why their games are like any game can come out that Atlas has published. Heck, think about it this way. Atlas is releasing a PS4 version of Dragon's Crown. You know what happened to my PS3 about like 3 days ago that I really was surprised that ever happened?
Did it die?
No. But good answer, though. Good guess. My version of Dragon's Crown for the PS3 got patched. Guess what it can do now? It can now play the Dragon's Crown. I can now play Dragon's Crown with Vita owners and PS4 owners at the same time. This is a game that's years old. Years. Previous gen. We're getting it on the PS4, and now we're able to play it with more people than when it possibly came out. That's amazing.
That's gonna be significant.
Yeah.
Man.
Right?
I feel like a lot more people should play Dragon's Crown because that's an amazing game.
Speaking of brawlers, Jiggly, brawlers, Dragon's Crown. That's actually one of my favorite like brawlers that's more traditional because it reminds me a lot of the AD&D games that Capcom released. It's a really good one.
Oh man.
Yeah, mixed with the Musashi or that one game. No, not Brave Fencer Musashi. It's more like Odin Sphere, mixed with Odin Sphere and beat 'em ups. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if you've played Metal Gear Survive. I just find it amazing because I loved 5, and I know a lot of people enjoyed the system of 5, and it's amazing how those same people took 5. Well, I mean, they played Survive, and they didn't enjoy it, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's not even that the game is bad; it's just the bitterness of Kojima not being there.
Right.
Is this the same engine? It's the same exact engine.
Yeah. I think it's weird to ask those questions because I ran into those questions myself, especially last year, actually, in fact. A huge conversation on my podcast, which is on iTunes, by the way, Backlog Battle Podcast.
Listen, people.
Was whether or not Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was a Zelda game. And my rationale was that because it doesn't have the traditional kind of sword and shield gameplay with all the tools and stuff, that it wasn't. That it's more focused on the sandbox aspect of it and playing around with the environment. And ever since then, I'm not going to belabor you guys with like the story, but for the longest time, we've my co-host and I had gone back and forth whether or not it's a true Zelda game. But the thing is, that's kind of crazy about this. It's turned into some weird philosophical discussion of whether or not a game is part of this franchise because they changed something different. Because let me tell you what, I did not like Metal Gear Solid 5 because it did not actually represent all of the things that I felt were Metal Gear Solid, which is pure stealth, a in-depth story, lots of cutscenes, and the tropes that the series has had for the past 4, or several games, if you include, the PSP one. And so, I actually had a discussion with both my girlfriend and my current co-host of whether or not it is a Metal Gear game. And we came to the conclusion that because Hideo Kojima is, of course, the creator of the game, it is technically still a Metal Gear game because it's his vision that's being realized. Because he is the creator of the series, he wanted this to happen, which goes into murky territory. Because if people come and go, which a lot of development teams have that happen, people come and go. Like Mass Effect is a great example, right? The writer left, before 2 was ever done. Like, whose vision is it? And so I feel like the question of, is it true to the series, is this weird philosophical question that we should never, ever, 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 ever ask ourselves. But the more important answer, really, at the end of the day, is that, is it fun? Mm-hmm. Do we have fun with it? Do we enjoy it? And this is kind of like a roundabout answer with Survive, but if you really genuinely enjoy Survive, then it is a great game. Like, because what's going to happen is, like, people are going to be like, oh, well, if they named it a different name, then it's going to be a good game. And I'm like, but wait, that the name has nothing to do with how good the game is if you're playing it. Screw the name. If it was called Survive, was it still a good game? If the answer is yes, then cool. You enjoyed it. Doesn't matter what the name is,
Very, very true.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Man.
Quite a deep conversation, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
I've only got, honestly, just 2 questions left for you.
Okay.
One is going to be God of War. Now, a lot of people are very, very concerned. Well, prior to all these reviews coming out, a lot of people are very, very concerned because basically, I mean, let's just put it out there. This is not the same kind of God of War a lot of us grew up on. From a gameplay aspect, it's very much of, in my opinion, I kind of describe it as an amalgamation of Rise meets the Arkham series, Combat meets Last of Us.
Some people even say Dark Souls for some freaking reason.
Yeah.
As if Dark Souls invented the third-person over-the-shoulder action-adventure game. No, that's no.
Oh, my goodness. I would even go so far as to throw in one retro title that a lot of people don't talk about anymore, and that's Legacy of Kain.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that this
game.
Man, they need to bring that back. IDOS, what are you guys doing?
Crystal Dynamics is making an Avengers game and not making a Legacy of Kain game. That's what happened. See how much knowledge I have in this packed brain of mine? Like, I don't know what to do with it. If you want more of this, listen to the Backlog Battle podcast. It's like 2 hours of this. It's insane.
Oh, man. So, given that they're going in a whole different direction, do you feel that the new God of War is a reboot or a continuation?
Continuation. I mean, it's obviously, they've been very clear about it, that it is a continuation of that story, because even according to some of the reviews that I have glanced over, he does address the violent past that he has. And that actually is crucial to the storytelling and the parenting that's happening within the game. So it's not a reboot. It's more of a, it's more of a continuation. I know it's silly to name it God of War. I mean, it's, come on, it's going to confuse people, right? But at the same time, it's like, it's a good start. It's a good way to kind of introduce it to people and stuff. Because, like, it won't have that problem that Yakuza has, where it's like, hey, do I play Yakuza 6 or do I have to go all the way back to 0? Like, I wouldn't have to make a video for that for God of War. I could just say, yes, play the God of War game on the PS4. You don't have to play the rest.
Yeah. I feel like I'm one of the few people that actually put out a review that does not have any spoilers. Like, even the footage in the game, like, the game is over 30 some hours long, and
great. Awesome.
There's a lot of replay value. I had to pretty much piece together the first 15 minutes of the game and some cutscenes, because if I did anything more, I'm spoiling it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I see a lot, like I've gotten some flack on my video review, and they're like audio issues because a lot of people didn't like the way, they don't like the sound of my voice, or they don't like that I'm not including more gameplay. And I'm like, I'm very particular when it comes to doing reviews
Mm-hmm.
because one little thing can spoil it.
Mm-hmm.
And I try not to spoil it at all.
Yeah.
But it is definitely a continuation. It's a different, it's we get to see a different side of Kratos.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very happy that they decided to take it into a new direction, because I think 3 was amazing. Ascension was more of the same, which is probably why I didn't do well.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to take it in a different direction. We couldn't get the same type of gameplay and
Mm-hmm.
storytelling. Like he can only be angry for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense for God of War to go in this direction, because you can't be the same Kratos as you were in a PS2 era. Let's think about that. This series has been with us since the PS2 days, guys.
Yeah.
You can't sustain that much anger. And also, in a very poetic sense, the you know, like Cory Barlog, which, by the way, in case you guys don't know who Cory Barlog is, he was actually responsible for some of the early drafts for Mad Max Fury Road. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, he was actually responsible for the early drafts of that. He was actually helping out with a bunch of writers. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but after God of War 2, which is the last game that Cory Barlog actually directed, he left the video game industry completely. He went into movies, started writing, and, you know, never came back to video games until 2013's Tomb Raider, where he was actually at Crystal Dynamics kind of directing some of the cutscenes there. Shortly after that, he went to Sony Santa Monica to work on this God of War. So this is a guy that's got a very clear vision of what he wants. And of course, now we're seeing like God of War, like pretty much, if it's according to reviews, if we believe them, it's pretty much reinvigorated, you know? So it's very interesting to see him at the helm again, which, and incidentally, God of War 2 was my favorite God of War game. So I have said plenty of times before that since I know this guy's pedigree and I know how he thinks and stuff, this was going to be a good game. So when I saw the review scores, I was like, yeah, of course it's going to be 9s. Of course it's going to be 8s.
All right, my final question to you before we get into the Q&A.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on this PlayStation 5 Xbox rumors?
Okay, first of all, the GameSpot article, which basically said that the PS4 is not going to be backwards compatible to, you know, blah, blah, blah. That was GameSpot misquoting Kotaku. Even Jason Schreier, the guy who made the article, was like, what? Like, I didn't have that in my article. What are you talking about? You know, and really, like, Kotaku has the skinny on that. And a lot of people are saying, like, oh, yeah, 2020 and stuff, which is cool, which is fine. You know, there is some modicum of truth there, but at the same time, why are we even worrying about it? Like, what we should worry about is whether or not we can afford God of War next week and Yakuza 6 at the same freaking time, and worrying about like how much time we have to spend on each or one or both of the games. Truthfully, I'm worrying about like me finishing Far Cry 5. I'm in Jacob Seed's area and I'm trying to kill him. So that's my current worry. Not like, oh no, the PS5. I'm like, no, dude, this is way too early to even think about that. We have so many good games coming out. May I remind you, Ghost of Tsushima was announced in December, and that looks like a freaking awesome game. So again, why even think about what's coming up next in the console cycle when there are still amazing games coming out for this generation?
Exactly. And that's the thing too. Like, I understand people like to be on the hype rumors and talk about it. You know, you got guys like Dreamcast Guy and Re-Res and all that. But for me, I know this generation started in 2013, but I still feel like we're only at the early point of the midway of this journey with this generation. There's still so much they can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to see another generation come until like either 2021 or later.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want anything next year. I don't want anything 2020. I think these consoles currently still, especially with this mid-generation refresh, we have enough to keep us going for quite a while, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. Can't agree more.
All right. So, oh man, I'm enjoying this chat group we got right here.
I know. It's pretty lively.
It is. So we got some questions. Also, Jiggly, I'm gonna read off your most recent one. So he's asking you, do you want to make a Shenmue collab video? Do you know where any sailors hang out? Are you Scandinavian?
Not Scandinavian. I don't know what kind of accent Scandinavians have. It's almost like I'm like doing some weird accents right now. It's kind of disturbing, to be honest.
I would actually love to see you guys do a collab, a Shenmue Yakuza collab video, because you guys are super knowledgeable in both series. I think it would be awesome.
Okay. So. Yeah, we'll see what we can hammer out, you know. I mean, I'm open to collaborations. I mean, like I said earlier today, like I was a tester for currently, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man game in existence, which is the Spider-Man game on the PlayStation. Forget the 64 port. That's terrible. And the Dreamcast port was good too, but I didn't work on that. You know, that's another avenue of collaboration. If people want to ask me like questions about my time in QA, what is the difference between my time in QA in that era versus when I worked on Call of Duty 3, that's also a possibility because I did work on Call of Duty 3. And also Ultimate Spider-Man, which you see a pattern here. Like I keep going on Spider-Man games. Maybe I'll just get Spider-Man later in the year when it comes out on PS4 and talk about that. I could basically show my credentials as I tested 2 Spider-Man games in my entire lifetime. Okay. I think I have a say in this. But joking aside, yeah, I also love like a whole bunch of games and I have like a weird amount of knowledge in my brain. So I guess there's that.
That's amazing, man. That's not weird. Stop saying it's weird. It's amazing. It's amazing. We're gonna replace weird with amazing. All right. So Din Avery wants to ask thoughts on the takeover and Shaq Fu 2.
Takeover as in wrestling, right?
No. Well, I think he means the brawler, the takeover.
The takeover. I haven't played that. I know. As far as for a person who loves brawlers, I sure am missing a lot of brawlers, and I think it's because of the PC thing. Yeah. You know, not sure what platforms there are. Shaq Fu 2, never really had an interest in it personally. You know, so that's gonna be kind of difficult. I have heard of like the weirdness when it comes to like the, you know, just the development of that game, but as far as like actually getting the game, that's not on my slate. I mean, I have 700 games on my backlog. It's kind of, I have to pick and choose my battles. 700. I think so. Let me check.
Wow.
I mean, I am called Backlog Battle.
I mean, I know, but I'm thinking maybe like 20 games. Wow.
I mean, remember that PlayStation Plus always gives out free games every month too. So there's that. Okay, so according to this, the games that I have unfinished, 805. It's actually more. Holy crap. Now, I haven't updated this lately, so I might be missing games in July, or rather, I'm sorry, February and March. So it's probably more than that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
God be with you on that.
Thank you. The fact that I'm able to finish Yakuza 6 and potentially Far Cry 5 is a goddamn miracle.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure people's like Steam libraries are bigger than that, but you know.
Good God. That game collector said his backlog is like 1,500 games.
See, there you go. It's a curse, man.
Oh man, that's insane.
Yeah.
Let's see what other questions we got in the chat. Come on, guys, throw some chat. Y'all talking a lot. Throw some questions out there.
Let me see. There was a question as to whether or not I worked on some GameCube games or Xbox games. What about the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox Spider-Man games? If you're talking about Ultimate Spider-Man for those platforms, I have worked on those. But if you're talking about the ones based on the movie, I did not work on those. So That was Triple M's question and stuff. Yeah, so there was like a period where I wasn't in Activision because I went to school and stuff.
Okay. Let's see. Good question. All right. So what did I'll throw a question since we're waiting on them. Based on the trailer and the gameplay footage we've seen so far of the current Spider-Man, what's your thoughts?
Great. Potentially like probably the best version of the game. Like best version of Spider-Man ever, which, you know, that's not easy for me because I feel very strong kinship with like the PlayStation Spider-Man, but yeah, it's yeah, it looks to really beat the crap out of that one.
Den Avery asks, what's your favorite Yakuza of all time?
I mean, if we're talking video games, easily Zero. Like it basically humanized Majima without compromising his character too much, like in the main series. Like there's actually a legit reason why he's acting the way that he does, and it's a great introduction to Kazuma Kiryu. And in fact, here's another shameless plug: if you're new to the series and you have absolutely no freaking clue as to what game to start, whether you start with 6 or 0, one of my pieces of advice was to actually start with 0. Actually, my co-host on the podcast actually recommended it. Actually, he recommended to 0, Kiwami, then Yakuza 6 if you just want to play new games in the series. And that video is actually on my channel at youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. And trust me, it's 5 minutes long, but you know, it's a lot of information. It's really, really good.
Yes, sir. I'll drop that in the chat too.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. Deck Game Collector, he asks, was Wii U a failure?
I think Nintendo will even agree that it was a failure because, I mean, that cycle is the shortest console cycle they've ever had in a long time, and the sales of it obviously like back that. And it's weird because I felt like it was an intermediary console, and with all these games coming out on the Switch and stuff, which some are ports and some are sequels of those games, we're seeing that, yeah, like the Switch was really their hand. It's like they bluffed the first time around with the Wii U, and now they're like, haha, look at the Switch. Oh, look at how it's selling. It's pretty gangbusters right now. And really the Switch's success, you know, if you contrast the Wii U to that, it's really apparent that the Wii U was a complete dismal failure compared to the success of the Wii and the Switch. Like it doesn't even come close to those two platforms.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But as far as like software, I think their software catalog was really, really good with their first party titles. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Also, Jiggly asked, do you think Shenmue 3 will sell enough to justify Shenmue 4?
We'll see. The problem with Shenmue 3 right now is we're not seeing enough of it. And that's concerning, especially for any Kickstarter or anything like that. In fact, I have yet to actually find like a good Kickstarter personally that, you know, I would wholeheartedly say, yeah, you should freaking support it on day one. I used to be that kind of person back when Kickstarter was the new hotness, but these days it's, you know, a lot of my recommendations are a lot more realist, if you will. I would like them to continue Shenmue. Again, I want to be clear. Like, I don't hate the series at all. In fact, if you love a series that I might not like, it's not an excuse for that series to die off. Games need to continue being made, regardless of one person's opinion on it. And the only way that we can do that is if we buy those games. So, if anything, buy Shenmue 3. That is the best way that you can ensure that Shenmue 4 actually happens, because we don't know what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah. And definitely, if you're going to buy it brand new or buy it discounted through like Best Buy, it's Gamers Club Unlocked, or through Amazon instead of GameStop, because when you buy it new, the companies that make the games get a portion of the profits. Whereas if you buy it used. Yeah, that's all GameStop there.
Yeah.
So
I want to address Shinobu's statement saying that Bloodstained Ritual of the Night was a good Kickstarter. We haven't played it yet. So we can't really judge whether or not it's going to be good until we finally have it on our hands. That's the weird thing about games and stuff and journalism in general. They show us a lot of really cool stuff, but until we have it on our hands, we can't really say definitively whether it's a good game or not.
I should probably send you. I have the demo.
Shovel Knight is a good example. Thank you, Jiggly.
I have the demo for Bloodstained. It's pretty good. I should probably send that to you.
Yeah, I just hope the entire game is good because if it plays like Symphony of the Night with that demo, fine, cool, but it needs to feel like the whole game, the whole experience from beginning to end needs to feel right. So,
and then let's see what else was there. Rikuki 2 asks, will you guys be at E3?
No, I'm not. And the reason why is I've been to E3 plenty of times before. I started going to E3 in 2001. It's a lot of lines, and you can't really accomplish anything unless your important media, excuse me, and you have appointments. And let me tell you, appointments and running around the convention center trying to make your appointments is not fun. A lot of people think that E3 is fun. No, it's not. Especially if you want to, cover video games and stuff. I remember in 2013, like when I was trying to cover Saints Row 4, and I literally had to run across the convention center, which is like about a mile long, and just literally trying to get from one part of the convention center to another. And because we had like a 5-minute meeting, like we had like a gap between meetings and about, we had a 5-minute gap between meetings. And I was like, holy crap, we'll never do this again.
Good God. It'll be my first E3. My wife and I will be going because my wife's a big gamer too.
Mm-hmm.
That's why everything I buy, I have to buy 2 of. No, technically 3, because I'll buy. She also likes to have games where we don't open them just for collector's sake. So yeah, I'm usually buying 3 of everything.
No, I get you. Do you know the workaround with does your wife play PlayStation 4?
She plays everything: Switch, okay. PlayStation 4, Xbox One.
Do you have 2 PS4s?
I have 3. 2 Pros, 1 Slim. I have 4 Xbox Ones, and because I have my setup here, and then this is her setup over here.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have one in the bedroom, a set in the bedroom, and then one living room.
Mm-hmm. I want to be clear to the people, and sorry for changing topics. I want to be clear to the people in the chat room and stuff. Like, I'm not saying that Bloodstained is going to be terrible. I want it to be amazing. It's just I want to make sure that when I play it, it is amazing, like as with everybody else. As far as the Wii U goes, my statement about the Wii U, I personally don't care about the financials of it and stuff. Like, again, the most important thing to me is if you had it, did you enjoy it? Like, I missed out on Bayonetta 1 and 2 on the Wii U. And of course, it's great that it's on the Switch, but but the question is, like, if you love your Wii U, that's really at the end of the day, like the most important thing here. And I hope that that's actually, carried across like to the people in the chat. So, but here's the thing, what I was getting at with here is, do you know of the primary user account like workaround? So you need to buy only 1 game and share it with your wife on the PS4.
Well, isn't it based around which PlayStation you said is your primary as well?
Yeah.
See, I know how to do that, but she kind of bounces around, so she'll upload to the
bounce around PS3s.
Yeah, so PS4s. So what
PS4, sorry.
So what she'll do now is she'll play. We set the bedroom one to the primary. She'll play in there when she gets off work, and if she wants to go in here to hers or to this one that I have, like I have a Pro right here, or to the living room one, what she'll do is she'll upload it to the cloud storage and then download it to whichever console she's on. Whereas on the Xbox, she doesn't have to do that at all, which is something I wish Sony would incorporate. where it just automatically do that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, other than that, okay, well, yeah, Dan Avery, he has a question. Would you recommend waiting for Kiwami 2 before playing 6?
No, play 6. There's again like the video that you've linked on the chat room actually talks about why you should just get 6 and not wait for 2 or any of the games in the series. And I'll give you like a quick rundown of what I said in the video. Um, think of the Yakuza series as kind of like a story that starts at the end, and then you kind of get the backstory later on. So like you know how like there's certain movies that start at the very end, and then you wind up figuring out like how they wound up in that time by having the most of the movie actually be like the backstory. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like that if you play Yakuza 6. Sure, there are things that you won't understand, but that serves as more of a motivation for you to go back and play those games after you've beaten 6. Because the stories are, for the most part, self-contained, but like 6 is an anomaly because it actually happens immediately after 5. And
Yeah.
the first reaction is going to be like, well, what the hell happened? How did this happen? And, you won't get that answered in 6. But the interesting thing in 6 is that it's got an even more interesting story in it. It's not as much filler as 5. And really, like, you won't even care about this stuff because by the time you finish 6, hopefully you just love the experience overall that you'll just want to go back and play the old games, you know? Because
Yeah.
that's really what it is. It's a stance that Sega has done and has kind of adopted because of course they want to sell you their latest game, but it's not impossible to get into Yakuza 6 without knowing all the previous games. It's really not that required.
Yeah. And then I guess the last question we have is from Also Jiggly. He wanted to ask, what is your favorite game console of all time?
Oh boy.
Earthball question.
Yeah, yeah, right. After all those Scandinavian questions. Um let's see. I would have to say probably my PS2 because it's gotten a lot of really cool games, not just from Sony and stuff, but also from Sega. And just, I mean, come on, if you think about it, it has Resident Evil 4. It's not the best version of Resident Evil 4, but it has a Resident Evil 4. It has Resident Evil 4, and it's the platform where you can play pretty much all the games in the series up until 4, including the crappy online ones as an example. It also had, to me, like some of the better, newer Final Fantasies. Like I know some people had a problem with 12. I really didn't have a problem with it, but it also has 10, which I actually really liked. 11, to a degree, I guess there's 11, but you can't play it on the PS2 anymore. But if you think about how crazy that system is, there's a lot of franchises that it started as well. For example, Monster Hunter started on the PS2. We wouldn't
Yep.
have Monster Hunter now had it not started on the PS2. And it was part of that online initiative that Capcom had with Automodelista and all that stuff. So really, like you look at that console, and there's just so much like that it offered from like crap. Persona 4 was on there, which is one of my favorite RPGs. There's just a lot to say. And you look at that console, it's like, man, what can't you get on that console? It even has SSX Tricky, which is random fact. I actually like that game, but it's great.
Yeah, it's true. It's basically there's nothing on the PlayStation 2 that you can't get. Every genre from racing to fighting to RPGs to strategy to yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mega Man collection. They had the original Mega Man collection there. Mega Man X collection. It's like they got it all.
you could actually have the entire X series
Mm-hmm.
because you had Command Mission, you had X was it 7 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then you throw on the backwards compatibility, and boom, there you go.
Yep.
That's a whole nother library.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and the reason I'm also agreeing with you too is I feel like with the PlayStation 2, I feel like that was the last console generation we had before DLC became you know, introduced in the norm as the norm,
Right.
as the current norm, whereas you got your full games on the disc. So
Yeah.
and now also Jiggly, I see you in the chat, man. I love the Dreamcast too. Excellent system. It should have had a longer lifespan.
Yeah. And again, like I am making this answer because of the games, because it also has like my favorite Metal Gear of all time, which is Metal Gear Solid 3. So
Snake Eater.
Yeah, Snake Eater. So which I never thought that Metal Gear Solid 1 was ever going to be beaten, as you know, with any of the sequels, and Snake Eater happened.
Very true. All right. That's all my questions, man, and I think that's all the questions they have. You want to leave us with anything? Open forum for you.
Man, I just, you know, I'm really happy to be here and stuff, and I love talking to the chat and stuff, because they seem to be really passionate about like what they're talking about and stuff. And you know, like again, like the most important thing for me, and I think for everyone, for any gamer and stuff, is to realize that it doesn't matter where you're playing on, it doesn't matter what anybody's opinion is. You know, it matters like what you like. Like, you know, if you're a YouTuber, show us what you like. It doesn't matter what like some Joe Schmo or troll like thinks and stuff. Like, it's more important to hear your thoughts. And that's actually like why I started YouTubing and stuff. And I want to share that passion for gaming again, because there's way too many outlets out there that are so negative, like trying to get controversy. And for me, like, man, I just love gaming. It's been around for me since like the Atari days. And yeah, that makes me feel freaking old because I'm almost 40. But, you know, hey, that aside, it's like it never ends. Gaming never ends. It will never get old for me.
I never would have assumed you were almost 40.
It's the Asian thing. You have to add 10 years to like what I look like, and there you go.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Ugh. Awesome, man. I've enjoyed having you on this podcast. This has been fun.
Yeah.
Definitely, everyone. If you haven't already, go over to Alex's channel. The link's in the description below. They also have his website. Definitely go give his website a follow. You have a email subscribe list too, right?
No, I do not have that. Twitter, I basically tell people to follow me on Twitter because I always talk about video games there, and you know, I'll also post like, you know, links to my podcast. It's audio only. It's only available on iTunes, Overcast, and Google Play. So if you Google Backlog Battle Podcast, you'll find me on those 3 services. And of course, the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. So it's my backlog battle on everything, including the website. You just have to add a .tv after it. So there's that.
All right. Definitely, man. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you to everyone who's been watching and listening. And man, I really want to do this collaboration with you and Xander. We got to do this. We got to make this happen. And I would even love to have one with you and also Jiggly, since, I mean, you guys make phenomenal content, like especially when it comes to Yakuza and Shenmue and Virtua Fighter. And since you're both big Virtua Fighter fans,
oh man,
he does phenomenal with like exploring the story, the depth, why it's better. Like, definitely check out his channel. I'll send you a link to it.
Just don't tell us to play against each other, because I'll really suck. I'll be like beaten like really easily. I haven't played Vanessa in a long time, so.
I didn't like how they when they made Virtua Fighter 4, I think it was Evolution, they took away her second stance and moveset and gave it to, I think it was Brad Burns.
Yeah.
Mad about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all I have, everyone. Thank you guys for watching. Alex, is there anything else you want to leave the people with? Go ahead.
Nah, not much. I mean, if you guys love Yakuza and co-op content, Final Fantasy 14 some days of the week, and you know, and RPGs and stuff, go follow my channel. It's, you know, youtube.com/mybacklogbattle. It's very humble right now. I try to respond to everybody as much as I can. And of course, on Twitter, you can find me on twitter.com/mybacklogbattle. You know, like I talk to everybody there, and sometimes I get a little bit snidey when it comes to like weird, you know, like memes and stuff, like the one that started today comparing like God of War to like Zelda of all things, which is really weird. And yeah, thanks for having me, man. It was a pleasure. I mean, the time just flew by. I didn't even know like what time it is.
Hey, have we been at this for 3 hours?
Yes.
Goodness.
Yeah. Told you. Time flies.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And if you enjoyed listening to us yap about games, definitely Google Backlog Battle Podcast. It's on iTunes. It's on Overcast, which is a free app, by the way, on Android and iOS and Google Play. Like, you'll really have fun. We release new episodes every single Wednesday at 12 midnight, and we haven't missed a single week since we started 4 years ago. So, yeah.
Definitely. And I'll also link that in the description below for the for this podcast, and I'll make sure it gets added on to the when I upload this to iTunes and Google Play. But definitely, man, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank all of you who have been watching and listening, and we'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace out.
Laters.